Call to order the meeting of a special meeting of the Mayor and Council of the Borough of River Edge, February 26, 2022 at 8 a.m. I ask for us to give a moment of silence for all those who live in the Ukraine or have family in the Ukraine, as well as for the political leaders who are deciding the future and the fate of the people of Ukraine and Eastern Europe. Ready, salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Statement of compliance with the Open Public Meeting Act. This meeting complies with the Open Public Meeting Act by notification via the February 17, 2022 sunshine notice containing the time, date, and access information to the town news and the record, and by posting of the same on the municipal bulletin board and borough website, and filing notice of the same with municipal clerk. Roll call.
Councilwoman Bastide?
Here.
Councilman Kanigo?
Here.
Council President Kaufman?
Here.
Councilwoman Kinsella?
Here.
Councilwoman Malalari?
Here.
Councilwoman Montesano Cohen?
Here.
Mayor Papaleo?
Present here. Very good. All right, everyone. First order of business in the agenda is to open to public comments. So could I have a motion from Council President Kaufman and a second from Councilwoman Bastide to open to the public on any matter that they are concerned with?
So moved.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, we are now open to the public.
There are no members of the public.
All right, but we do have some residents and non-residents who are our chiefs and our directors and our superintendents. If they wish to make a comment, they are free to do so. Do you wish to make a comment? Hearing none, could I have a motion from Councilman Kanigo and a second from Councilwoman Montesano Cohen to close to the public?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Are there any opposed or any abstentions? Hearing none, we are closed to the public. Okay, our main topic, the purpose for this special meeting is the 2022 budget. So I turn it over to our business administrator, Ms. Apportella.
Good morning.
Good morning.
The way I see it, what we should do is review the summary of the budget, how it currently stands, and then move towards capital, since that is the bulk of the budget and we have many projects listed. And just beforehand, our library director, he cannot stay on for too long, so he needed to make a comment about an adjustment that needs to be made to his salary and wage line.
Without objection, that's how we'll proceed. Is there objection? Hearing none, Lizette, continue.
Okay, so I yield the floor to Dara so he could give his explanation, since some information came down the pike yesterday afternoon.
Thanks, folks. And the reason, of course, I had to rush off is I'm opening the library very shortly. We were open for business till 5 o'clock today. So just skipping forward to salaries. If you look at the library's information, you'll see that there's a $200,000 figure for part-time staff. I'm seeing that that's off. I did my math yesterday. It should be around $224,088 by my estimation. You'll also notice that in the last year or two, salaries for a library have been down because we're on shortened hours and we've not needed so many part-time staff. Our plan right now is we're open for 50 hours a week and we want to be open 58 hours a week. back to open in evenings till 9 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And to do that, I will need $224,000 for part-time staff. So I'm asking for an adjustment for that. I'm sorry, let me correct myself. They're part-time plus hourly. We have some hourly staff as well.
Lizette, can you tell us exactly where that is in the binder?
If you go on the library tab, after the cover page, it is the first page under public salary and wage. There's full-time, then the second line is part-time. The account number is 2-01.
Hold on, we're not that quick. Okay, so we go to the library, it says actually 5-year capital plan. It's in that section, are you saying?
Yes, once you pass the cover page, it's the first page of the operating admin sheet.
And it would be the third line that says part-time 200,000.
Correct.
And Dara, you wanted to change it to 22488.
Correct.
Okay. And just for the publics and for the council and for the, oh, by the way, I forgot to thank the members of the budget committee who are present. Thank you for being present today. The percent PY, was that if you could just make sure that all our members of council understand what you mean by percent PY?
It's the percent change from the prior year.
That's what I
So,
thought. I just want to make sure that you said that, not I. All right, so Dara, you're saying, so that would be an increase of, from the current number of about 12%, correct?
Yes, but think of it in terms of what we need to operate in, for 2022 as compared to 2020 and 2021.
Yes, no, I do understand that. I think the council does too. All right, so Dara, just a question I'm sure the council would be asking, and I know the time is short and that's why I'm asking it. What was the budget pre-COVID?
So if you look at the spreadsheet there, you'll see in 2019, help me with this, Chris, we had what, 510,000 for full-time, was it? And we've broken that out now. Yeah, I'm having trouble reading the spreadsheet, Chris. If you'll just
I see the 510,000 under 2019 for full-time, not for part-time. And there's nothing for part-time, and then it's broken into two elements for 2021, and it's broken into two elements for 2022. I point that out to the council so they could see the difference there.
Our salaries are down from 2019. The reason for that is because we had, well, there's various different reasons, but we had 3 full-time people retire. So how we've replaced those, they've been replaced at a lower salary level.
Okay. Any member of council wish to ask a question so far? We can all certainly hold it off. This is just preliminary. I'm just trying to make sure that we all are looking at and hearing the same thing. All right, continue with the presentation if you would, please. Thank you.
So that's all I have to say on capital. That's a different conversation. All of that has been explained in the sheets that Lizette has provided. Should I talk about capital?
Lizette, that's your call.
Yeah, if you could just explain the 2 items that you are requesting while you're here.
Very good. Okay, so first item is a book drop. It's very straightforward. Our present book drop is 16 years old. In fact, one of the first things I did when I started here 16, 17 years ago was get a new book drop. It now is corroded at the bottom and is basically to the point where we think rodents could probably make a home in there. They'd be able to get in through the holes in it. So it's worn out and corroded. I need to replace it. I'm going to hold on to the trucks inside. So that's one expense we won't have to incur. Total cost is $8,000, and I provided a photocopy of a page from a catalog showing you that cost. Now, going on to the staff workstations.
I want
So
to stop you there. I want to make sure every member of council and of the budget committee can see that the last page under library has outdoor book return, $8,000 and 5 workstations. Lizette, where is the page that Dara just referenced of what it looks like?
That is not in the book. That would be included in any purchase order. So
Okay.
those backup sheets.
Continue, Dara.
okay, so on to the staff, 5 staff workstations. So you probably have never, most of you have never been in the work area of the library. It's off limits to the public. Some of you have seen it, but in that work area, there's a perimeter where we have countertops where the staff work, and they do a lot of technical processing and book covering, cataloging of books, craft work, all that stuff. Inside in the interior of it's a good big room, high ceilings. In the interior of that room, we have 5 very old desks. They range in age from, I would say, several of them are from the 60s or possibly the 70s. And the newest one is a tiny little, particle board thing is at least 16 years old. So not very efficient, but that's not just the reason we want to replace them. We want to be sure that we have proper distancing of the staff so they can sort of work in their own space for health reasons. So to mitigate the spread of viruses, and so we can be apart from each other when we need to be. So efficiency and health, this has been on our list since we redesigned in 2009. We had a designer, an interior designer, examine every square inch of the building and come up with a new design for the entire building. This got lower priority, funds were limited, and so we're finally getting around to it in 2022, 13 years later. So we have a cost there. The quote I have from BFI is 15,000 rounded out. I enclose as well as a map. I have it here for you. An architectural drawing, a plan of the building with the area concerned highlighted in yellow. So
All right.
yeah.
Okay.
So that's pretty much it, folks. Pretty much every staff member, except myself, works in that space at some time or other during their work day. And I work there sometimes too, at the bookkeeper's workstation.
Does any member of council wish to ask a question? All right, just for clarification's sake, if we go back to the budget sheet, which is 3 sheets up or 2 sheets up, we look at the budget revenue sheet. It says 278,700 plus 200,000 plus 24,088. That brings their request for this year's budget to 502,788. If my math is correct, please correct me if I'm wrong. Previous year was 518,411. Year before that was 511,565. And year before that was 501,535. Now, for the benefit of everyone, just if you're not used to this, the top number, and correct me if I'm wrong, Chris or Lizette, the top number in each of those categories is what they're requesting. The number underneath is their actual, and then of course there are transfers underneath that. Is that correct? For the benefit of the council and any member of the public who might be seeing these documents. I assume these documents are all online?
The budget, these documents are not online because it's deliberative material.
Okay. So, so this would be.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, would it be possible for us to put up the sheet that you're looking at so we can all look at the same thing and make sure that we're seeing the same thing? I think that would be helpful. Is that possible, Chris? Was that?
I can share my screen. I'm looking at a slightly different version of this because I'm using the software version of it. But I can put up the, my version, and it's going to look the same. I'm just not going to have the same page numbers as you.
Well, we don't have any page
Okay.
numbers, so we're okay with that.
Yeah, we'll just reference the account number so you can do the quick search.
I think Councilman Kanigo's request is a good one. We've done it in the past. We should always be, if we can, as transparent as possible. So if we can keep, a presentation up, whatever we're referencing as we go through it.
So it would be the actual budget line with all the sub accounts for 29-390.
Just let me know if the sizing's not right, because I have very large monitors in front of me, so it might look a little bit smaller on your screens if you don't have the same
Chris,
resolution.
can you bring it up to 125 if possible? Okay, and could you, do you have a highlight capability? There we go. All right. Okay,
So
ours
it's
is- go ahead.
actually 502.
Yeah,
not
502, 788, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And that includes the part-time.
I'm sorry, guys. I'm lost. Where's the 502 number? I'm not seeing that.
It's not there because Dara just told us we need to adjust the part-time from 200 to 224.
Okay, so the 478 number goes up to 502. That's what we're saying?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I'd just remind the members of the Citizen Budget Committee, if you have any questions or if you'd like to make any requests, like Councilman Kanigo did, that you are well within your rights to do that, and you should feel free to call out. There's no reason to raise your hand. This is a very informal session. Unless, of course, a lot of people start talking at once, and then I'll, be a traffic cop. But most of the time, we don't need that.
All right, so just so I understand, last year was 518, the year before was 531, the year before that it was 511, and this year it's 502. So it's going down this year, even with the increase of what Dara just asked for, right?
Yes.
That's how I'm reading it. Lizette, Chris? Lizette and Chris, you can leave your mics open too, unless you have background noise.
In that case, I say
Yes.
thank you, Dara, for a great job, because this is a year that we have to cut. So thank you.
So, yeah, just the very simple reason it's gone down is because I had 4 or 3 full-time people retire. And, so that's quick and easy explanation.
I was just going to say, because you're a great director, but if you want to go that route, that's fine too.
Okay, I'm a great director as well.
All right, good.
I agree with Dara. You are a great director.
We're coming out of this pandemic as well. We're going to do good things this year.
Great. It's one of the gems of River Edge, our library.
Thank you.
All right. Lizette, we don't need a motion or anything, right?
No,
All right, continue.
yes, as long as there's consensus, then
So is
Chris
there
can
any-
make the adjustment.
Is there any objection to the adjustment? Okay, hearing none, so approved.
Okay, so Chris, can you go to your sheet that has the summary of the tax impact?
And where would that be on our binder?
That would be the
Beginning.
first tab.
The summary tab,
Yes.
first sheet.
Lizette, before you go there, can I ask a question about the last sheet on the library?
Sure.
It has the 5-year capital plan and it has 2022, it has 23,000, but then 2023, it has 23,000. Is that for the same thing, but it doesn't have what the breakdown is?
Give me one moment.
Good catch, Indira.
Yeah, no, that's an error on the cell. There's nothing for 23.
Okay.
Okay, so this is the first sheet in your book, the summary of the tax impact of the book as prepared with everything in salaries, other operational costs, revenue, and capital. So I yield the floor to our CFO so he could go into more detail and answer any questions that the governing body or budget committee may have.
Thanks, Lizette. Just going from top to bottom so that we can go through the sheet real quick. You can see that the total valuation increased by about $2 million year over year. Now, the average residential assessment went down. This wasn't because the value of the average house went down. Last year, actually, the mayor caught an issue with our tax duplicate where we had a condo association that was included in the residential value. So there's a formula underneath this. Every year that there's what's called a tax duplicate. It lists all of the values of every home, commercial property, vacant property, and exempt property in town. And the overall amount of that went down by about $12 million. But that condo association by itself was 14 million. So the average residential value did go up a little bit. However, this is how it appears on your tax duplicate. So the formula underneath the 391,870.09 is just the total value of residential properties in town divided by the number, which is 3,230 total. So it gets you to that 391 average. For the sake of keeping everything consistent year over year, I just continue to use that number. There's a couple other ways that we can do it, which would involve exporting data and going through that process. But the issue that you have is when you're comparing year over year, you want to make sure that it's an apples to apples comparison. So that was the goal with using that number. The total budget number, 18,188,000, is just the total of all of the appropriations that are on your worksheets. The number below that, actually the two numbers below that, I have separated from our total miscellaneous revenue because I use them as variables as we talk about the tax rate. The first is surplus. You're familiar with that. We use surplus every year. I left that flat year over year. The second number is the ARPA funds, the American Rescue Plan Act. We were awarded, I believe it was about 1.4 million. We're using about 500 of that this year. I'm sorry, not 1.4, 1.2 million. We were using about 500 of that this year. We're able to use up to $10 million, which is obviously a lot more than we were awarded for to recover lost revenue during COVID. So what that allows us to do is it allows us to anticipate the ARPA funds as revenue to offset our operating expenses between the time it was awarded, which was last year, and 2024. So we had introduced our budget before we actually received the ARPA funds last year. So we didn't include anything in last year's budget. Now we have 2022, 23, and 24 to utilize these funds. And we can do so via revenue, anticipating the revenue and offsetting our operating costs. So I'm utilizing 500 this year. We'll continue to utilize the rest of it in the next 2 years. One of the large items, and this is going to be a discussion this afternoon, I'm sure, or later this morning rather, is capital improvement fund. So a lot of this money is going to be used to offset the capital improvement fund, which is larger in this year's budget than it has been in the past. And the rest is for general operating expenses. By the time we get to 2024, that number will be lower, and then in 2025 it will be zero. Our total miscellaneous revenue is again the summary of just all of the other miscellaneous revenue, not including surplus or the ARPA funds. This is fees, permits, court revenue, a couple other items that we have that are all listed on our revenue sheets, which we can go through as well. Receipts from delinquent taxes is just a product of what is outstanding and what our collection rate is. We try to keep this pretty flat year over year so that we don't expect spikes in what our delinquent tax collection rate is going to be. Finally, we've got the amount to be raised by taxation, which is that 18 million, and then you subtract the other four numbers below it to get you the amount that we're not raising in miscellaneous revenue, but has to be raised in tax revenue. The dollar increase year over year is just the difference in the amount to be raised by taxation year over year. The percentage is the percentage increase year over year. The tax rate is determined by dividing that amount to be raised by taxation by the total taxable valuation. Then you multiply it by 100 to get to your percentage. 0.981 is what calculates at our current number. Now, this number obviously does not include the 24,000 that we just added for the library, but this is a number that we will adjust up and down as we go through this meeting and the next meeting.
Chris, can I interrupt you for a second there? Does this number include all items on the capital listing?
Mayor, this includes our 5% down payment for all items. Yes. Yes.
So if we approve the entire capital list, this number would be a current number. Any items removed from the capital, and this number goes down, correct?
Correct.
I'm saying this for the benefit of the council, the committee, and the public. Thank you for letting me interrupt you.
Not a problem. So moving down a little bit further, we are at the annual increase for the average resident. This is where you start to look at the average residential assessment and how it changes year over year, because as you change the basis, it changes your annual increase. As of now, we're at 69.39, which will go up by about $6.30 for the $24,000 increase that we just added. Like I said, that will fluctuate as we go through the rest of the morning. I divided that by 12 to get your monthly increase, and divided it by 365 to get your daily increase, to give you an idea of what that looks like on the average tax bill.
Chris, I'm going to interrupt you again. I'm going to do that a lot, so I hope you are patient with me. So for clarification, the $6.30 that it's going up, is that to the yearly or monthly? I assume it's to the annual increase.
The 69.39 is the annual.
Good. So it's about 675 is what you're saying, correct?
Right now it's 75.74. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
As we go further, we look at the value of a tax point. It's a commonly asked question. What is a tax point? And that is a product of your total taxable valuation. You take your total taxable valuation, you divide it by 10,000. For every 148,683.07 that your budget changes, it's an average impact of $39.19 to the average taxpayer, right? And both of them are products of the total taxable valuation and the average residential assessment. You can see that those are just both numbers divided by 10,000. I made it a little bit simpler to digest. I said, okay, well, if you wanted to keep it just under $100, the amount is $116,000 that you can actually increase this budget. So this is based on the numbers. Obviously, that's changed a little bit with the $24,000 addition. And to bring the annual increase to zero, you would have to take out $263,000. Further, the impact of $100,000 even is $26.36. That way, as we're going through this, when we are adding and removing items, you can see exactly what that's going to do to the average tax bill. I also have a working document here that I'm updating, so you can also just ask me and I will let you know.
Any member of council or of budget committee wish to ask a question for clarification or for further understanding? Hearing none, you can continue.
I'm through the tax summary. So I don't know if we want to move on to the next part of this.
That's Lizette's call. Lizette, are you good with that?
Yes, if the governing body wants to go over the revenue sheets to see if there are any questions on any anomalies that are seen in revenue, any spikes, any drops.
Without objection, we'll go on to revenue. Is there objection? Hearing none. So moved.
Okay, so in the second tab of your budget book on the revenues, it outlines all the anticipated regular fees that are collected, like the alcohol beverage licenses. They're collected from the borough clerk's office. Under fees and permits, you'll see that there's an amount collected by the clerk, police, Board of Health, etc. So just let us know if anyone has any questions on any of those accounts in that section.
And for the most part, and just for clarification here, unless there's an anomaly in an account, you are generally anticipating the amount that you received in the prior year, or not greater than the amount that you received in the prior year. If you do anticipate more than what you received in the prior year, you do need to provide justification to the Division of Local Government Services explaining why you expect it to be higher. The numbers that you see here are mostly a product of what we received last year. The only items that would change are, if you expect lower, I wouldn't want to anticipate more than what we expect to take in. There weren't really any scenarios where that was the case. So this year revenue was pretty straightforward, with the exception of the ARPA funds, which I separated out for clarity. And cable franchise fees are an item that goes down every year. So we are expecting a little bit less. And let me just find that page. That's over here. You can see it's been 151, then 146. We're anticipating 132. But you see that we had anticipated what we received in 2020. We anticipated 151 because that's what we received, but we only got 146. Then we anticipated 146 and we only got 135. Now we're anticipating 132, and we did receive those checks already. We did receive 132, so we won't be short this year. But that's the kind of thing that is happening. Those revenues are going down, and that's out of our control as well.
Chris, on line 20108105000, the fees and permits, it's going to zero. Can you talk to that?
The fees and permits. So in previous years, we had the $55,000 that we're anticipating, which you can see up here, was just in our what's called a control account, which is just a summarized version of all of the sub-accounts. So this year we split out the revenue into the sub-accounts so that you can get a better idea of where those fees and permits are coming from. Even in previous year, you can see, we anticipated the 55,000, but nothing was actually posted to this account because it's a control account, not a sub-account. So last year we received just over $36,000 in the clerk's office, 2,600 in police, 11,000 in Board of Health, and 13,000 in fire. So this year we're anticipating those dollar amounts in those respective departments rather than in the control account.
And then I would just point out for everyone, if you see the total at the bottom, has a big drop this year, but that's only because, as Chris told us the other night, the budgeted grants and the Chapter 159s are not in there yet, and they will be later. So the total number should not be off by as much as it looks as if it is right now.
So for the benefit of the public as well as the committee, the budget committee, would Chris, can you give a definition to budget grants and Chapter 195s? I think the budget's pretty self-explanatory, but if you could do it anyway.
Absolutely. So the grants are anything that we receive prior to the budget being introduced will be included in the budgeted grants. These are going to be items like clean communities, recycling tonnage, alcohol education, rehabilitation, DDEF, DWI grants, click it or ticket, all the grants that we regularly receive every year. Those are the ones that you might find in the budgeted grants section. I usually will not populate them until right before we introduce the budget. There's no tax impact. We receive the revenue. We have an offsetting appropriation. It nets out to zero. And we wait until the last minute to populate these because we get them up to not only do we get them up to the last minute, but we continue to receive them throughout the year after the budget's adopted. So after the budget is adopted, any grants that we receive that we need to utilize in that year are what's called Chapter 159s. So in our introduced budget and our adopted budget, you're not going to see anything that under the Chapter 159 column for this year because they would just be included in the budgeted grant column. Once the budget is adopted, you'll see resolutions sporadically throughout the year. They're called Chapter 159 resolutions, which is simply a budget amendment. So we amend the budget to include the grant. Again, we're including revenue and an offsetting appropriation, so there's zero tax impact, but it does give us the ability to utilize that grant throughout in the year that we receive it, rather than having to wait until the next budget year.
Mayor, can I ask a question?
Always, just feel free to call out.
Okay. Chris, could you just make a comment on the cash management fund line? If I'm reading it correctly, it's down 93%. It's just I'm sure there's a comment about that.
Yeah, well, it's actually all of our interest. I'm actually anticipating only $2,000 in interest this year in total, right? This is just a product of Fed funds rate. Interest is just about zero. Our cash management fund is where we keep the bulk of our idle cash. This is where we keep most of our fund balance, and it has generally better investment returns than our local commercial bank. Even with that, my expectation is virtually non-existent. If we change this to zero, I would be equally as happy because the expectation is that I'm not going to get any interest. Now, in previous years, in 2020, the interest rates were a lot higher. We were getting $30,000 a year on just that account alone, in addition to what we were receiving from our local bank, which is PNC. For now, it's our entire expected interest is $2,000. Compared to last year, we anticipated $41,000, and compared to 2020, where we anticipated 85, right? So this is something that is out of our control. It has nothing to do with the amount of cash that we have on hand. It's simply the interest rate that we're receiving for that cash. And one thing I would like to clarify, we do have a cash management plan that we adopt every year. municipalities are so restricted on what they're allowed to use municipal funds for that there's not really another alternative. The best case scenario is we can, buy another municipality's debt, in which case we're locking up our funds for a year, until that note matures. I generally try to stay out of that market just because we don't have so much cash where that's not going to be potentially an issue for us. Cash management plan is just about the cash management fund is just about the next best option for investing our funds, unless a local bank was going to give us some one-time special offer for a 1 year or 6 month introductory period, which I'm also weary of because I don't like to change banking systems just for an introductory interest rate promotion.
Thanks for the explanation.
Any questions from any other member of council or from the committee?
Can I bring up something, Mr. Mayor?
Absolutely, go ahead.
The Uniform Construction Code is the amount anticipated is flat over the past 4 years, but it's been increasing. With last year, it went up to 268. I realize that this is a product of people either building houses or doing renovations or other major projects, but is there any anticipation that there may be some more money in this particular cell?
There might be, and again, it is a product of the activity in the borough. I don't typically like to increase this line because it's not guaranteed. And what you might find is that you anticipate a certain dollar amount and then the activity is lower than you expect. What my preference is, and this is a preference on my end, the governing body can certainly change the way that we do this, but I would prefer to use surplus over utilizing more of an item that's variable. The reason why is because when we anticipate surplus, it's guaranteed. When we anticipate uniform construction code fees, they're not guaranteed. So if we receive more than what we anticipate, so last year we received 268,000, we only anticipated 195. Well, the additional $73,000 went back into surplus. So we might have utilized more surplus last year, which we did, but we replenished it because we were higher than anticipated in the anticipated revenue column. If we receive less in construction code fees, then it reduces our surplus, right? So any deficit in revenue would also apply directly to surplus, but it's less favorable to have a deficit in revenue. I don't want rating agencies and any other outside agency looking at our budget each year and saying, hey, they always anticipate more than what they're actually going to get, and they keep having a deficit. So that's generally the reason why I like to keep an item like that flat.
And also, if I may add, the construction code fees are one of these fees that are scrutinized by the state, and they don't want these fees to be a revenue source for municipalities. So a couple of years ago, the state required municipalities to reduce some of those fees. So that the state always has an eye on this account for all local entities.
All right, thank you very much. It's a very thoughtful method of controlling this account, and I agree with the whole idea. Thank you.
Any other questions from the council or from the committee? Hearing none, let's move on.
Okay, so the next tab in the book is the capital, the overall 2022 general capital ordinance summary. And for this discussion, we have our big department heads of police, fire, public works, and recreation. So I just ask that every department, as they go over their requests, to go into detail for the justification, whether it is to replace antiquated equipment for vehicles, to explain the condition of the vehicle, the mileage, the age of the vehicle, as to why a vehicle needs to be replaced, and any other capital request, to just go into detail instead of just saying we do this every other year or something like that. So the first grouping of capital requests are from the police department, if Chief Walker is available.
Chris, could you increase that, please? Thanks.
And actually, what I'll do is I'll increase it so that you're just looking at the total cost for now. And then if we want to talk about the individual funding, I can always just scroll left and right so that we can see how we're funding it.
Should we go to the 5-year plan instead, or?
I think perhaps we should start with the 5-year plan so we understand what the needs are, and then go back to this year and understand what this year's needs are.
Is there objection? Hearing none, let's do that. Where is the 5-year plan?
It's the page right before fire department.
So the tab that says police department? All
Yes, the last page of that section.
right, everybody, let's go there. And I take it it's the page that says the 2022 budget request justification, operating budget, police department, that sheet.
It would be the last sheet of that section, the spreadsheet. It doesn't look like what is on the screen because Chris consolidated all the departments, but it has the same information, where the vehicle replacements over the next several years, the ballistic vest program, the tough book.
So we're saying, oh, I have my filter on. We're saying the sheet that looks like this, correct?
Yes.
Good. Is everybody there? Does anybody need a moment? All right, let's continue.
Okay, you want me to just start in, Lizette?
Yes, please.
Okay. I'm going to start, if it's all right with you, I'm going to start from the bottom up because I'm waiting for, I just want to confirm one number that I'm waiting on with the vehicle. So we start off with, it says server upgrade and installation. That is that's the heart of our computer system. It's housed in the basement. It runs the entire police department. It stores all of our information. It keeps us safe from people getting into the system. And it's going on 6 years old, and that's the life expectancy is generally 5 years on that. We use Quick Tech, as I think you all know, as our computer, our IT people. We've been very happy with them. We've had other police departments and, as you know, businesses that have been attacked, and they do a great job taking care of us. They also know we don't squander our computers, our money on computers. We're conservative. You'll hear me talk more about that as we go along. But that's just the price tag that's going to be to upgrade and keep that where we're at, so we're safe and we don't lose all our information. That's simply put. If you have any questions with that number right there. All right. You want to go item by item, guys, or how would you like to do it? Want to stop there and ask any questions?
Why don't we go item by item and continue until you hear someone ask a question?
Very
And
good.
Chris, if you could blow up, zoom in by 10% or so. There we go. Go ahead.
Okay, the handgun replacement. The handguns are going on 14 years old. And it wouldn't be so much, just because they're old, even though they are getting old. We're getting some what are called hairline fractures on the slides. Just with qualifications, a lot of rounds, a lot of bullets go through these guns a few times a year. And we're going to start running into problems with that. We have sent a few back, and the maintenance on them, it just gets to a point where they can't really repair them. And at this point, though, there is a resale on those. The company will give us some money, and what they do is they either sell it to civilians or they sell it to other, believe it or not, other countries. So that's a number that replaces the handguns and the equipment that are needed for them. The handguns we got in 2008, so that's 13, 14 years old. We started discussing that last year a little bit, and I listened to my firearms guy in detail. He shows me in detail his concerns, and we just feel like it's time to do that. And at the same time, the value of the guns that we have, we can get something. I think it's around $250 a gun. So that explains our request for the handguns, if you would. Again, we'd use them to qualify. Thank God we've never had to use them real life, but it's one of those pieces of equipment where it really needs to be there. It needs to work properly.
Chief, about how many handguns is that?
So that's about usually there's like one extra, so it's like 25.
Very good, thank you.
All right.
Chief,
yes.
what's the life expectancy of replacing them again?
I think it's at least 10 years. I can get a clarification on that from our firearms guy when we take a break, but it's at least 10 years. And again, it's one of those things where it's generally we'll keep pushing it off because, we know we can push the life expectancy on them. And we know that, we try to get, look at things that we definitely need. I know this is my first year it being completely my budget, but I know, in talking to Chief Critty in the past, that's the firearms are things where we'll push it, but it's a combination of we are actually getting some hairline fractures on the slides. Has to do with the two types of metal. I won't get too technical because I'm not a really handgun guy, but it has to do with the way they're made. They're made differently now. They're always made better as you move on. And again, we can still get something for them, which is important.
Okay, thanks, Chief.
All right.
If I have a question on the the life expectancy, but if we purchase new ones, does that come with the service and guarantee service? Let's say, does that include that?
So the service on them, I mean, there's a warranty on them for a period of time, and the gun companies are very good. If you have an issue with a particular gun, they've always helped us out. I mean, they do the right thing. I'll say they don't turn around and beat you up and tell you got to buy a new one. They know it's their reputation. So our officers also our two firearms guys are also trained armorers, which is important because they can fix many of the issues. If there's an issue with one of the sights or an issue with particular parts of the gun, they get trained in that. That's part of the sale. To train your guys so they know these guns. My two officers that work the range will know them inside out. So when we do have an issue, we keep that in-house, which is important also, because otherwise you're going to have more than one extra, or you're going to be, paying more to get it serviced by somebody. All right. The traffic cones that can be 5,000. That should be 5,000. There's going to be an increase I'll talk about later, but not in the cap line with the signs. And that's just traffic cones and signs that I think you all know now. Sergeant Diamond, he's really like an autopilot guy with this. You just minimally look at, he does a great job using this 5,000 each year to keep us what we need. Unfortunately, cones, they get destroyed or they get taken. We do the best we can with it. We really try and stay on top of it. And then there's other signs that you see around town that, that are all just part of this 5,000 ongoing each year. The radio car computer is the tough books that they use in the patrol cars. They have a 5-year expectancy. life expectancy, and that's really it's really when they're heading out. We have 5 cars, so that we keep with these computers in them. If we have an extra one that's still working, we'll use it in another car. But basically, those 5 cars are the lifeline of the police department. 4 of them are used 24/7, and that's where the officers look up everything. They do the reports more and more. They're just they're obviously 100% computer dependent. Little history. I am the last one to have written a report by hand. Every one of the guys after me, every other officer on the police department knows nothing but writing reports on computers. And the technology with them, the lookups they can do now are incredible. They can look up everything, send information back and forth. We've been using them and pushing them more and more to have intel. So we're getting the most we can out of them. That's one of them right there. That's how much it costs, and it works well. If we have skipped this, we'll run into an issue where I'll be asking you, for 12,000 one year because we skipped a year. So we try to do one a year, and it works perfect. It's 5 years, just as the cap request. All right. The ballistic vest program, that's just a replacement of our vest, and that 2,000 is not bad at all. These vests have gone up. They're like $1,200 now. It's incredible. They've gone up in price. And we try that, so that's going to basically pay for 2. I'm going to take a little bit of a hit there, but we do get a grant that helps us out with it. And the way the vest work, really is, I wish it was an even number, but as you know, like we hired 4 officers this year, so we're going to get hit with 4 or 5 years from now. There are years when we might get 1 or 2. There's years when we might have to get 5 or 6. But we try to maintain the 2,000 in the cap. And it's been working. So I don't want to be greedy with that. If I have to take a little bit of a hit somewhere, I'll figure that out. All right.
So the price is going up like a third for each vest.
Price is, yes, it's and you're going to hear me talk about that as all of you know, with a few things. And it's just, it's just, and they get you. I don't know how else to put it, but between the certain equipment and the computers, there's no place else to shop. You just get stuck there.
I just want to point out to everyone, as we go across the board in these capital plans, a lot of the numbers are going up anywhere from 20 to 100% for items that were in our 5-year budget this year versus last year. So we're seeing some massive price inflation.
Okay, so before I get to the last thing, the communication center, I didn't put anything for 2022. I'll get to the vehicles next. I just skipped there. And the reason for that is I wasn't involved in that at all. Actually, when I sat down with you guys last year, both myself and now Captain Casey, that was new to us that was even put in for. And when we started to take a look at that, we realized it was, I guess for lack of a way to put it, was kind of a dart at the wall. They were looking at the individuals involved in looking at it. We're talking with one particular company that would be involved with the communications and different electronics at the desk. And they said, okay, now what do you think it'll take to renovate the rest of the desk? And they said, add 100,000 to it. So, we took a look at that and we're like, wait a minute, we have to slow down with that. I started bringing in other companies. It has to be GC'd, and it has to be done properly. It's as you know, it's 34 years old, that desk. It definitely needs some TLC, to say the least. But I want to go about it the right way. And so I'm going to let that remain a question mark for this year. And next year I'll be able to put it in place. And hopefully, by doing homework for a year, we don't get too beat up on cost, but I can't honestly say, give me, 400,000 and I'll make the desk work. I think it has to be done properly. All right, so that's why I didn't put it on there, but thank you for keeping it on there. So that'll remain to be determined. Thank you, Chris.
So is there already 400,000 set aside for this? Is that
no? The 400 grand were the radios.
Okay.
So actually, Chris, that communication center update, the radios, that's done. We spent that last year. I would be looking for you, Chris, if you could just make another line and call it communications desk. or main desk, and that would be to be determined. Dario, thanks for pointing that out. We already spent the 398 on radios. So we're just going to add one line because I know, you know, it was there last year. And I think a couple of you picked up on it, rightfully so, and said, hey, what happened to that? So I don't want it to leave your minds. I just want you to know we got to do some homework before I come to you and ask you for that much money. Thanks again, Chris. All right. All right. The patrol car replacement, that first thing I have to do is bring it up to 140. And that's as of this week. You know, and that's just increase in things. And I'm going to explain it. We lost the car during the storm. It drowned on Valley Road. And that's going to happen every now and then. We were able to, with the insurance and some leftover caps that I have to really thank Chris and Lizette for you know, making me aware that these, I call it scrap caps. There was money there. We were able to replace that patrol car without going into without asking for any other money, which I think is great that we're able to do that. That being the case, normally we ask for 2 patrol cars a year, and that's that 105. All right. But what I'd like to do this year is take advantage of the fact that I don't need the other patrol car, but our 2 admin cars are 10 years old. We bought them used. All right. And they're around 85 to 90,000 each. One of them is the car that I drive. It's literally the back is just rusting off of it. I have to thank, you know, Jason's, you know, Pete down there does a great job keeping it going, but they're really beyond their life expectancy. My car in particular, I have to say, you know, and I think, as you know, I am a hands-on type of guy. When I was out there in the storm, the water was just coming in the door because it's a passenger vehicle for all intent and purposes. So what we're looking to do is replace the 2 admin cars, which are not radio cars, meaning that they don't have to have that radio car level of it's called like a police package. All right. And we're still looking to add, you know, replace that other patrol car. Again, that 105 that you see each year, basically that's 2 radio cars. That keeps us in a good place. We're going to place 1 patrol car and the 2 admin cars. Now, the thing about the admin cars is that they're good for anywhere from, you know, they'll make 15 years, a new one. All right. Remember, these 2 that we bought that are going on 11 years, we bought them used. It was something that I was a part of that 10 years ago. Some departments were buying from like Hertz and stuff. It seemed like a good idea. And I tell you what, we more than got our money's worth out of them. But the thing with them is they're not really right for the positions. With this purchase, we're looking to buy a Chevy Malibu, which is just a basic car for the detective car. And then it would be 2 Tahoes. One of them will be a police package, and one of them would be a lesser grade because it doesn't have to work 24/7. And that's what we're looking at to do with the radio cars this year. The other car we're looking to replace out of those 3. So remember the 2 admins, the 1 patrol vehicle is the Durango. It's a 2006. It's got close to 60,000 miles. It's used. It can't be used for much. It really can't be used for anything but traffic. Again, if Jason I know he's aware whether or not he needs to chime in on this, but we were using it to tow something. And after that, I think Pete almost had a heart attack because the understructure of it. We were lucky that it didn't just, you know, the tow package, if you would, just didn't fall off of it. And it's not so much the towing capability, it just shows you that car, it's just the life expectancy is beyond it. So we're replacing 3 old cars. And I think that's a decent, for 140,000. The price went up last week. It just, you know, I don't have to tell you guys, everybody knows how things are going up. But for 3 cars, that's not bad at all. You have to remember, we have to put the equipment in them. You have to pay for the installations. But on the admin cars, it's minimal. It's just minimal lighting. The patrol car, yes, it's the cage, it's the computers, it's all the electronics that cost more money. All right, so that's the patrol cars. The only 2 other things I'd like to discuss, and it's kind of, you know, I guess we will put it under cap, If you remember last year, I kind of asked if we could, the cameras, the camera for the park and the camera for the library. I said, that was going to be two different companies, two independent setups. And I just kind of scratched my head, and you guys were good enough to say, yeah, Chief, run with that and see what you can come up with. As far as we really should be monitoring it, right? And we wouldn't be doing that if we just let each department spend their money on independent companies. It took a good amount of time. I've had a few companies look at it, but I went for, everything from the gold package, which would do every one of our parks, the library, the police department, updating and grading, and it was astronomical. It was somewhere around $150,000 to $200,000. We have to deal with Wi-Fi. You have to deal with a lot of stuff. So I knew, coming in and asking you guys for that much money just wasn't going to be realistic. So I scaled it down, and I talked to the companies, and I said, I need, give me the heart. Let me start with the heart. Let it, explain to them, we want to be able to monitor at the police department, and we want to get the library and rec off the ground. They've been waiting on this. What can you do that starts this off? And then we can build on, as generally happens once you put cameras in. Put one in the park, and then you're like, hey, we got to put one over here. We got to put one over here. But you don't want to do that, and find out, well, now we got to change the base. Now we got to upgrade this. So that ticket was about $38,000. And I believe we have $10,000. It's set aside between the two departments. So I'm just throwing that out there. If we want to go forward with the camera system to be part of a monitoring by the police department, which is what I think we should do, we're looking at spending 38. And again, between rec and the library, there should be about 10 set aside there. I think you see the outdoor cameras, 14, indoor cameras, I think, again, it should be a total of 10,000 already sitting there. So we'd be looking at 28,000. Again, I just think it's the right way to go about it, but you guys are gonna make that decision. And then the last thing is, that's not on there, but we discussed it last year, and I honestly think we need to, I'm gonna say, take a pause with it in a way. And Dario, you certainly could chime in on this with traffic and safety, or the flashing, the crosswalks. We were looking to add 4 more. Those things are about 15,000 for a set. But what in talking with Sergeant Diamond, and he's in discussion with Costa's office, we're in limbo right now to try and get what we do have out. It's unfortunate that we didn't get them installed last year because the price went up to install them. Of course, we want to put them at Reservoir, but it's not ADA compliant. So I don't know if we should spend the money to buy them. We don't know when that's going to happen. So I'm okay holding off on purchasing more flashers, but I don't know, again, Dario, if you have any knowledge of more that the guys were looking at besides what I'm aware of. I know we have to do Continental, the library in front of St. Pete's, but all that was kind of allocated, but the funds also, or they had to go out to bid again, and it's kind of in limbo. So in my mind, let's clean it up. Let's spend what we have. Let's install what we have, and then see where we're at.
Well, I've made this one of my priorities over the course of me being on the council. And so far we've installed, I believe, 3 of them. We set aside the money last year. I was a little upset to find out that I'm not quite sure why it's been in limbo. We allocated the money, and the money should have been spent, and it should have been installed. I've said this before, I walk the town every day. Many of you have seen me walking around, but it's every single day. And there's a lot of very dangerous crossings in town. We have kids, we have a community that walks a lot. We have kids that go to school, walk to school, bike to school. And I think these crossings are an absolute priority. There's 2 sections on Howland that the Traffic and Safety Committee has discussed. Mr. Ruhlman, who is part of our committee here today, is also part of the Traffic and Safety Committee. And if he feels like chiming in, I certainly welcome it. But certainly the Howland crossing should be done. That's a very dangerous area for many children who go to school, and parents who walk their children to school, and elderly people who walk, and regular people who walk. So I don't like the idea of taking a pause. I want to continue with this money, and I want to get these things done. Reservoir and Kinderkamak, every night the bus drops off people who have to then play Frogger across Kinderkamak. You know, and you know, we've had the problem with the sign at Wayne and Kinderkamak that I hope is fixed now, or is being fixed now finally. But that sign hasn't worked for a while. Tragedy is going to happen at one point if we don't get in front of this. So I personally, you know, Chief, you know, I support you and the police department and everything, and I think you always do a terrific job, but I'd rather not take my foot off of this. And in addition, just to go back to something else you just spoke about, the video cameras, you know, I'd be in favor of allocating the $28,000 for the video cameras as well to get you started on that, because I think that's another safety concern. And I think both the library and Memorial Park area should have video cameras. So that's my 2 cents on those two subject matters.
Someone
Thanks,
has a clarifying question to Chris and Lizette. Is the 28,000 currently in the budget, or would that be 28 additional $1,000?
It would be 28 additional. What you see on the screen, library, those cameras is also supplemented with an appropriation from 2020 for Memorial Park for 6,300. So that's how the chief came up with a $10,000 figure. And if I could just add with the flashing beacons, that bid was pulled because there's really no generic beacon for every location. So the bid specs had to be substantially revised, which warranted the cancellation. Every intersection has to be looked at and determined which specific beacon warrants it. There's solar power, there's certain size requirements, and then that also affects the trees if there is an audible feature. So this requires to delve into much more research to make sure we're spending the money on the right type of beacon for the particular location.
I mean, look, I didn't in any way mean to criticize any of the decisions that were made to get this. Lizette, I think you guys have been doing a terrific job on it. My only thought was that it was a year ago, and I understand the municipal government moves slowly and things have been crazy over the past year, but I just would have hoped that a little more progress had been done on something that we allocated the money for, again, a year ago, almost today. But you know, I appreciate all the work that's being done on it. I just don't want to take my foot off the pedal, as I've said on this. I think this is an important duty of our government to protect our residents, and I think this is something basic that can be done that can help people in town.
I know we have been on Costa's office, and I think some of the delay, I don't want to, beat up Bob Costa, but there's been some delay in dealing, with his office and moving these things forward.
Look, it happens. I get it. I'm not interested in blaming. I'm interested in just going forward and just, pushing forward. That's all I'm saying. Sure.
Go ahead, Jason.
I met with Jason from Costa's office and a couple of vendors last week. The problem is we had to get a little bit more understanding on the different flashers. We have come up with a solution to that. Some flashers can accept a head flasher, some do, some program themselves. We're learning a lot more on this. We did meet with field agents from each company. Like Lizette said, the flashers did have to get pulled for better understanding. We did realize there was a lot of different flashers. Jason from Costa's office is reworking those flashers, and the locations that cannot be done due to the ADA ramps, such as Reservoir and Kinnicamack, will be pushed off, but the other locations that we have talked about in traffic and safety, those flashers will be moved to those locations until we can get the area of Reservoir and Kinnicamack up to standards. So that's where we're at now. I know we'll be working with him to try to get a new bid up and out for this year to complete. But I would suggest the 30 extra thousand to go with that bid so we can continue to keep going and moving on to the locations that were talked about in traffic safety.
Jason, I saw a note that the repair costs have been very high on the solar signs. I'm just wondering, are they paying off? Is there an alternative to them or?
When you say repair costs, you mean the batteries?
I thought I saw something in one of the notes that the repair costs were very high and they could like.
Yeah, so the traffic signals that we put on Kinnekumack and Wayne, we will not be using that company anymore due to you have to use a computer on that style flasher. The other, if you're talking about the batteries that we have recently put in and some of the updates, these are for the speed limit signs, not necessarily the flashing signs. They are over 6 years old already. So the batteries do have a life expectancy of 5 years. So we got an additional year out of them. And that's the cost. Every light that goes solar, you have to look at the cost for batteries for about every 5 years for that light. If we can extend it, then we do. But that's also the solar lights. That's everything solar that we have. So
How much are those batteries right now?
they range anywhere from $250 to $650 a battery. It all depends on the application.
Michelle, I think you're probably picking up on in my justification for the traffic line 182, which we'll talk about later. I asked specifically to go from 600 to 2,500 specifically for that, because we are running into the batteries now. So there is an upkeep that we have to be aware of, because those things aren't cheap.
And also, just so you know, the $5,000 line that the chief talked about with the traffic cones and all of that, that also Officer Diamond used very well. If a solar panel did go down or any of that, that could actually make up the difference there. So that is a good line, like the chief said, to have in the budget.
So just for clarification purposes, we're seeing line 82 on the screen. Police flashers, I believe 30,000 last year and 30,000 this year. We are recommending, we're not saying an additional 30,000, we're recommending to keep that 30,000.
Yes.
Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, Mayor.
Okay. Whereas the cameras item that was brought up is a recommendation from Councilman Kanigo to add, correct?
Mayor, can I ask a question about the cameras in general here?
Always, feel free.
In 2020, we put 6,400, which was the additional $6,000 that we're talking about for cameras at Memorial Park. And we also had an automatic locking system for the bathrooms there. And my understanding, and my recollection could be wrong here, but they couldn't move forward with that at the time because they needed Wi-Fi, a stronger Wi-Fi signal at the park, which caused us to then budget another $17,480 for the Wi-Fi system at the park, which you see here. So if the Wi-Fi is included in that 28,000, we might not need the full 28,000 for 2022's budget, because we do have the 17,480 still left over, in addition to the 4,000 that you have between the two items here for the library, the 6,000 for Memorial Park from 2020. So I'm not sure if they're
So
related.
you're saying that you're thinking we need another 11, not another 28.
Only if this Wi-Fi is included in that $28,000 price. I'm not sure if it's included or if it's in addition to.
And who can answer that question for us?
It's not included. And I don't know that the 17,000, however, is a number. I'm working with Verizon to bring the wire to the building, to do it, so that way it's a done deal. There was talk of trying to make it Wi-Fi without going on to the building. I just don't think that's the best way, and I think it's a lot more money. If we're going to expect to expand and we need a Wi-Fi there, that is one of our weakest areas in town. That lull, Memorial Park, it kind of goes through the middle of town. Only in the last few years have our cell phones worked properly there, as probably many of you know just from going to watch your kids play. So I don't know that it would cost 17,000 to get the wire over there. We do contract with Verizon for our Wi-Fi here at the PD, so we'd be looking for them to put it there, but that is independent of the 38.
Then how about this, just for the sake of a more efficient movement of the meeting, why don't we ask for that 28,000 that Councilman Canigo is recommending not be put in the budget yet, that we wait until the next meeting, and that the chief and Chris and Lizette work to try to assess what the actual increase would need to be, so that and we can add that to we can make that first on our topic of discussion for our second council and committee budget meeting. Does that seem to be a more productive way so that we can move forward? Because we have spent a lot of time on the police budget and ancillary details, and I don't have any problem with that, but I want to make sure we can get to other budgets.
I agree.
All right, Chief, is there anything else you wish to bring up at this time? If not, we're going to move forward. I'm going to ask the council for a vote of confidence for the budget as is, but is there anything else that you feel we need to discuss?
No, not unless there's any questions on your report. Thank you.
All right, is there a debate or discussion for modifying other than what has been recommended? Let me review what's been recommended. Vehicles from 133,000 to 140,000, traffic sign cone device from 6,000 to 5,000, the total for 2022 from 195,826 to 201,826. Is there debate? Hearing none, all in favor of the budget as shown and with the alterations I described, please say aye.
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 Any abstentions? Any opposed? Okay, Chief, thank you. Lizette, let's move on.
Okay, the next department on the multipurpose ordinance screen is the fire department.
Mayor, could we take a 2-minute break? Otherwise, I'll
Absolutely.
be back in a minute.
Everybody, 2 minutes.
Thank you.
We're good. All right, Lizette, let's continue.
Okay, where we left off was for the fire department to go over their capital requests. So I yield to Chief Cavity.
Good morning, everyone. Hope everybody's doing well. I guess, do we want to start at the top? Is that okay, Mayor and Chris? The first thing is more of a correction. I see, Chris, on here, it says rescue pumper, and then it has the 270 and then 23, 24, 25. That should actually say ladder truck partial funding for 23, 24, and 25. And also it would be for 26 as well. So that should just, say, I don't know if you want to put a separate line, because the rescue pumper was last year's project. That was pretty much done. So, but that should say ladder truck partial funding. And
So
then
in the books, under the fire department, last page for 2022 capital, it does say that. It says ladder truck partial funding, nothing for this year, 125 for every year after that.
Okay.
So it is on the documents that the council and I believe the budget committee has.
Okay, very good. And just to talk about that very quickly, probably in 2028, that ladder truck will be up for replacement. It's a 2003. And I highly recommend that we start putting money away, because the price tag then will probably be almost $1.2 to $1.3 million. So that's something I think we should be focused on and putting money away, even if we can afford to bump that up next year and the year after. But moving on, the turnout gear, as you know, the council and the budget committee.
Actually, for the record, Chief, the current ladder truck was purchased in what year?
2003.
Okay. Continue, Chief.
The turnout gear, We're still continuing to replace turnout gear. We need to meet the NFPA requirement that turnout gear should not be in service past 10 years. So as you can see, we're asking for $40,000. That should buy us approximately 14 sets of turnout gear, maybe 15, as long as we're pretty sure pricing on state contract has held from last year. As you know, as Chief Walker has alluded to, prices are all over the place lately. So we're hoping that the pricing didn't go up. So we're asking for the 40 grand. And as you can see, for the subsequent years after that, we drop it down to 30. Keeping in mind that I think we'll be getting caught up with our turnout gear and constantly replacing it.
Sorry to interrupt. In the last year's budget book, you had 20,000 for this year and then 22,000 for 2023 through 2025. Why is it going up so much?
For last year, I don't know. The turnout gear did go up from last year. But I know this year we spent probably we probably spent $38,000 on gear for last fiscal year. $20,000 would not get us too far. So that's why we're asking for $40,000 again this year as well.
Is that because you've had additions?
You had 20,000 last year.
So let's deal with that in two pieces. Michelle there's 20,000 last year. Chief, do you wish to comment that? And then Councilman Kanigo had his second question, and if we could have an answer to that too.
If I may add on the turnout gear, because I have my book from last year, 20,000 was requested, but 20,000 was added during the course of the discussion. So the amount was 40.
Correct. So thank you, Lizette, for reminding me. I wasn't part of the budget process last year. I do remember Chief Sanders saying that 20,000 was added to that. So again, I would like to keep.
Dario, what was your question?
I guess just the why. Is it because we've added members of the department that just require additional gear, or is this replacement of damaged gear? I'm just trying to understand it.
Go ahead, Chief.
So to answer Councilman Kanigo's question, it's both, Councilman. As you've seen, you guys have sworn in several of our members. We have new members. We've gotten some more junior firefighters. They're going through the fire academy. The fire academy will not allow you to come up to the academy with gear that does not meet the National Fire Protection Association standard. The other issue that we need to address this year is we have several members that are wearing hand-me-down gear. So in other words, I'll use myself as an example, although I'm not one of them, but I'll use myself as an example. I might have a coat from, say, a John Smith, and my bunker pants are from, Frank Smith. They weren't properly sized for me, only because we don't have enough gear for them. So that's what they're getting. There was an issue last year, I believe it was, in a department in Bergen County, where they had a firefighter get burned in a fire. And as you know, whenever there's an injury or a civilian death or firefighter death, the State Division of Fire Safety comes in and does an investigation. And their investigation found that the firefighter that was burned, part of the reasoning for him getting burned is his gear was not sized for him. He was a new member. He was using hand-me-down gear. And if you could picture wearing pants that are too short, what happened was while he was crawling around in the building, he got burned because the bunker pants came up almost above the boot. So that department got a violation notice issued. They had to pull all the gear from their new members and scramble to get them sized. So right now we probably have 5 or 6 members that are in that category. So it's to get them proper gear and to also replace gear that is getting past its life expectancy.
Thank you.
Chief, continue.
Okay, I guess the next line is hose. We haven't purchased firefighting hose in quite some time. Some of our hose is 20 to 30 years old. We do our hose testing every year. Last year, some of the hose that was supposed to be tested, we didn't even test because it was 30 years old. So we're just asking for some money to replace some firefighting hose, especially our attack lines that are crucial when we're going into a building. If need be, we could probably drop that number to 5,000 if necessary. And we could probably get by with that for now. And then, if we can get the additional 8 for next year, if, just to kind of help out with the capital as far as much as we can. The next item is the thermal imaging camera. The thermal imaging camera does not cost $600. We have $3,400 that was left over from a capital line in 2019 to purchase a thermal imaging camera in 2019. It was never purchased. The prices have gone up. So at the recommendation of Chris and Lizette, this is just to balance that fund. So in other words, the thermal imaging camera is like $3,980. So we would take the $3,400 from the 2019 capital, and this $600 would give us the money to buy a new thermal imaging camera. That would give us 4 thermal imaging cameras, and all 4 of them would now be the same. They would be all the same model, same user familiarity, same charging system. So that would standardize all our thermal imaging cameras on our apparatus. And we use the thermal imaging cameras not only for searching for victims, but we also use the thermal imaging cameras to check for fire extension, anything in the walls, something that we might not see.
Can I just ask a quick question? In last year's budget, you had $6,500 for 2022 and for 2023, and then it went to $7,500 for 2024 for thermal imaging cameras. Are we going to need that money in the next couple of years still?
No, Michelle, this would take care of, that's why if you look on the current 5-year plan, you don't see anything after that.
Yeah.
That would take care of us. And the thermal imaging cameras last anywhere between 6 to 8 years, 10 years. So we would be good after that, Michelle.
Okay.
So this would be the last year of that funding that thermal imaging camera.
Okay, thank you.
The next one is the Scba face piece protective covers. That is, as you know, we just received all our new Scba packs that were ordered last year, that we saved probably, seeing the pricing on the air packs now. And I want to thank Chris and the mayor and council and Lizette for getting that done. We saved the taxpayers by funding that last year. We saved the taxpayers about $80,000 for getting those air packs last year. So I appreciate that. These are plastic face covers that would go over the actual Scba face piece. They're a hard plastic. They have 2 loops on them, and they clip onto the face piece so that while the face piece is on the firefighter's turnout coat and not being used, it protects the actual visual part of it from being scratched. And we would get them from the same vendor that we bought the air packs from. Next one is the purchase of pagers. It's been a couple of years since we've purchased pagers, and along with what Councilman Canigo said, we have gotten new members. We're band-aiding pagers together for them. Some of them, the volume knobs don't work. Some of them, they don't reset when they go off on their own. Some of them, a lot of them we can't get batteries for anymore. So this would put us in a good spot this year and next year to get us up to the pagers that we need for our members. And that would complete that program this year and next year. And as you can see for 24, 25, and 26, we don't have any more pager requests.
How many pages is this? I'm sorry.
That would get us, let me just look real quick, Councilman Canigo. That would get us approximately 12 to 14 pagers.
Each 8,000 or the total 16,000?
Each 8,000. That would get us about 12 to 14 pagers, as long as the price hasn't jumped dramatically. which I don't believe it has.
So you did have 5,000 in the budget last year for 2022 and 2023 for pagers. Is that a price adjustment or did you increase the number?
I increased the number, Michelle,
Okay.
just to cover, based on what the officers were telling me and the condition of the pagers. That's how that number went up.
It's almost $600 a pager.
Yes, it is. And I believe when I sent my budget submission in, I believe I gave Lizette a printout. You might have that in your budget books. I'm not sure of that.
No.
Is
this? I mean, I'm envisioning the pagers from the 90s before cell phones were.
So I don't know if you guys you can't see it, but so it would be a Motorola Minitor 6 pager, and I don't know if you guys can see this. I don't think you can, but yeah, the pagers have gone up. They're about $600 a piece, Councilman. The next item is the mobile radio replacement. That would be to replace the current mobile radios that are in the 2 Ford Explorers. Each car has 2 radios, so that would be a total of 4 radios. And the reason we're replacing the radios is, as you know, the police department got their communication upgrade last year. They're going to, without getting into this whole communication, they're going to more of a digital trunking system, more working off of repeaters and phone lines. Right now, the mobile radios in those 2 Explorers cannot be reprogrammed for that. So we need to replace those mobile radios. We're currently replacing the radios in the Tahoe. My chief's vehicle, we're replacing them in the Tahoe from last year's capital money. As you know, that would have completed our portable radio upgrade last year. So this would basically be to upgrade the mobile radios in the 2 Ford Explorers. That would provide them with digital capability so that we can continue to talk to the police department when they transition to their new radio system. And then the radios that are in their car now, we can use them in other vehicles if need be.
34,000 is for 2 radios.
The 34,000 is for 4 radios, Councilman.
4 radios, and then the 40,000 for next year is for.
That would be for the apparatus. So this year would be the command vehicles, Councilman. And then next year, we would have to do the same thing on the actual truck radios themselves. Because everything is going digital with phone lines. I know enough about mobile radios to be dangerous. It's based on a phone line trunking system. So right now, all of our mobile radios in the fire trucks and the command vehicles do not have that capability.
So I just had a question. In last year's capital plan, you had 30,000 for 2022 for mobile radio replacement for 4 vehicles, and then there was nothing for 2023. So why is there an extra 40,000 there now?
That I'm not sure of, Michelle.
Okay.
I honestly can't answer to that. Again, the 34,000 would be for 4 radios because each command vehicle has 2 radios. And then next year's budget, in anticipation of a price increase, would be able to cover our apparatus as well.
Michelle, what was it in last year's budget again? I'm sorry.
It was 30, and so it's now 34.
Okay, I'm just going to make a general comment here, and it's not meant at you, Greg, so don't take it as such. But, you know, part of the reason that we want these 5-year projections is because we want you guys to project as best as possible so that we don't meet these situations where now this year we have to increase above. So like last year, you told us there should have been 30. So this year it should have been 30. Again, this is not specific to you. I'm just saying in general, and I'm seeing a trend here. So I'm just gonna ask all the department heads to please, going forward, really try to think about these things, in that 5-year space. That's why we've asked for these 5-year plans. So that then when it comes up, 4,000 is not a lot, but in the scheme of things, it does add to it, So I just want to make that general comment, but thank you for the explanation. I understand it.
Yeah, no problem. And again, when last year's capital was put together for the 30,000, I don't have to tell any of you, prices have changed dramatically since when this crystal ball was put together last year.
Understood. And that's what it is too. And I'm cognizant of that as well. So that's why it's not a criticism, it's more of a comment.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I appreciate that. No, absolutely. None taken. The last item is the command vehicle replacement. That would be replacing the 2014 Tahoe that we currently have. That vehicle is still in pretty good shape. One thing the reason I put that in there is for a couple of reasons. Due to the prices going up on vehicles. I believe the police chief alluded to that with his own vehicle replacements. And the fact that that vehicle, we could, a lot of times we put the vehicles out to pasture or in reserve status, I'll call it, or for another use, and there's not a lot of life left on them. This vehicle, I feel, should have some good life left to it. The one thing that we could use it for, if you decide to replace it, is we could use it for OEM and also towing the boats around. As you know, during Ida, we got hit pretty hard in town. We had areas flood in town that none of us have ever seen flood. And we were using 2 vehicles. We were using the old Expedition admin vehicle. I think it's admin 1, I believe. And we were using one of the chief's vehicles. So basically what we would do is we could put this vehicle, we could store it inside at company number 1. We have a bay open where the squad was that we didn't replace. So that vehicle would be stored inside, thus extending its life expectancy. So it wouldn't be sitting outside. And the 75,000 is a number that would include the command console, would include the lighting, and that is purchasing the vehicle off of state contract. As some of you have seen the current Tahoe, when you open the back hatch, there's a command console there with radios, a workstation, storage for air pack, turnout gear. As you can kind of figure, we cannot use that in the new Tahoe because the new Tahoes have a different design in the back. So the current module would not be able to be taken out of the 2014 Tahoe and slid into a new one. So we would have to do a new design console. So that 75,000 would more than cover any anticipated price increase and would give us another vehicle that could last us another 8 to 10 years easily. So that is what that is for.
That was in your 2024 plan. Why are we moving it up?
So I moved it up only based on a couple things, Michelle. Actually, 2 main things was supply chain issues and cost of vehicles. If the council and the budget committee allows us to purchase that, we probably wouldn't be ordering that until, I guess, May or June, July. And I know of departments that have ordered Tahoes and they're waiting 6 months, 7 months, 8 months for them to come in. So even if we ordered it this year in the summer, we might not see that vehicle till January, February. So that's why I just moved it up, just because I don't know what it will cost us in 2024.
Chief, what's the urgency of this for this year? Because we're facing a lot of.
Yep, I understand, and that would be something that if we pushed it off, Councilman, to 23 or to 24, I think we'd be okay. I just cost wise, it could be 80,000 next year or in 24. That would be my only comment to that, Dario.
Yeah, no, that's understood. We know prices always go up.
Yep.
Personally, looking at this, I don't think that the $75,000 is something that we should be spending this year. I'm not commenting going forward. We can revisit it next year, but my feeling would be that we take this item out.
I would have to agree with that. I myself have been looking at cars, was going to buy a car this year. They're all showing dealer bump ups because of the chip issue and supply shortage. I actually think we'd get a better price if we waited 1 or 2 years. I agree with the council.
I'm fine with that.
Any other member of council wish to chime in or of the committee?
Chief, I just have a quick question going back to the mobile radio. Maybe I missed it. How many vehicles was that for, the replacement?
That would be for 2 vehicles. That would be for both Ford Explorers, and that would be a total of 4 radios.
4 radios, okay.
Yes, and they would be, and one thing I forgot to mention, they would be what's called tri-band radios. So they would be able to handle the digital trunking. They would also be able to handle UHF and VHF frequencies as well. Right now, we operate on VHF, as does most of Bergen County. So.
Okay, no, I'm just commenting because last year's budget, you had it said 4 vehicles.
Yeah,
for
it
the
would
radio.
be, right, so that would be, this would be 4 radios for 2 vehicles, and then the 40,000 for next year, again, anticipating some kind of price increase. That would cover the radios in the fire apparatus.
Okay, thanks.
Chief, with those
Thank you.
radios, would it be possible to split those 2 costs, the 34 and 40, over 3 years evenly?
Yeah, I mean, if you wanted to take this year, I mean, I think it's critical that we do the 2 command vehicles this year, Dario. But if you wanted to take the 40 and do 20 and 20, I think that would be something that we could probably do.
No, I'm more concerned about this year. Let's leave the 40 for
Right.
now for next
Yeah,
year.
it's because it's critical for those 2 command vehicles to have those radios.
Okay, and as far as pagers are concerned, is there a way to get those used that would save us some money?
We did that many, many years ago. I think we did that, I want to say back in 09 and 10, and they were garbage. They were garbage. So they didn't work right. And it was just, we had to get them repaired. And it was just something that, we couldn't do. I mean, if anything, I mean, the purchase of the pagers, again, that would give us, 12 to 14 pagers. I mean, if we need to cut anything to lighten the capital load as far as the fire department goes, we could always dump the 2,600 for the face piece covers, and then we'll just figure out how to fund that a different way. If that helps, I really think the pagers.
Chief, I'm asking the questions, but I'm never in favor of cutting money out for safety equipment.
No, I understand that, but I'm just saying, Dario, I think the 2,600, I think that's the one thing in here in our capital request that we could figure out how to get them another way.
Chief, I would say leave that in for now, and if we have to revisit it at the end of the day when we're finalizing the budget, we'll do so. But I would say, since you've asked for it and I think it's reasonable, personally, I would say just leave it in for now.
Okay.
Chief, did you mention that there was play with the hose dollar amount?
Yeah, I think, Ellen, I think just to ease the capital this year, because I know the capital budget is very huge this year, we could probably cut that in half. And we'll just, we'll get what we can and replace what we can with the 5,000. I feel comfortable with that. And we'll just do what we have to do. If you guys want to cut that in half, I would have no problem with that, just to help the capital numbers, to help get down to where you need to be.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
So let me summarize at this point. It has been suggested, though not yet moved, to take the 75,000 out of this budget and either move it to 2023 or 2024. but we would probably move it to 2023 and then assess at 2023. It has been suggested that we reduce the hose from 10,000 to 5,000, and leave the rest of the capital in place. Is my record correct?
Yes, so moved.
Yes. Second.
Okay, it's just been moved. Can I have a second?
Second.
Is there any debate or comment? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Any abstention? So let me review now so that Chris and everybody else and everybody, we're moving the 75,000 command vehicle replacement to 2023 with a slight option to move it to 2024, but it's probably better if we do it next year. We are adding 40K to the 2023 budget for a mobile radio replacement, but of course that is just a pin, just pinning it there. That's where we'd start our discussion. We're in the 2022 budget, we're reducing the hose from 10,000 to 5,000, which would take the total from 170,200, if my numbers are correct, to 90,200. So it's a reduction of $80,000 to the capital budget. Is that correct? Was
That's
that clear?
yes.
Good. All right.
Chris, do we need to, sorry, Greg, do we need to add something to the outer years for the hose?
I think we'd be okay, Michelle. Leaving that $8,000 in there for next year. I mean, if you want to cover us, I would do, 5,024.
Okay.
Again, I'm just kind of, we can revisit that next year's capital discussion.
Yeah,
So
let's put a pin there.
Right. And if I may, just real quick before we end on the fire department, I think the most critical part of the capital budget going forward is that ladder truck partial funding. I think that's something that I really think we need to start putting money away for that. Even, if we can, even more than 125,000. So.
Before we move on, I also see Jason's hand is up. Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, Mayor, sorry, my camera's not working. I was a little late here. You reduced the hose by $5,000. I just wanted to say, we use the old fire department hose for our pumps, to pump out sewage and all that stuff for our wet pumps. Our lines are really bad right now. We've been throwing a lot of them out because they're dry rotted, because they're really old ones. I was hoping to talk to the chief before this to see if which I know he has a couple of the old ones that I guess he was going to replace. So that would really help us out using those old hoses, if that could stay at the 10 grand.
Well, hold on there. Greg, Chief,
Yes.
how much hose would you be replacing for 5K versus 10K?
We would probably, in terms of lengths of hose, we typically buy our attack hose in 50-foot lengths. So it would probably go from, and I'm just starting this, Mayor, probably from 40 lengths of hose, 50 lengths of hose at the 5,000 to, 60, 70 lengths of hose roughly. And again, I know the hose prices are, I just talked to a vendor last week and he said the hose prices are all over the place.
Yeah.
So,
so you're thinking you could send to Jason 40 lengths of hose? Is that what you're saying?
roughly. Yeah, maybe a little bit less, but.
The problem is we have 1,000 length runs where we have to pump to, and we have the hoses. In fact, I'm really, thank God we didn't have to run it, but I'm really low on that hose. That's why I was hoping he would be. I mean, we have here a pallet of hose. I think we have 100 lengths on it, and we've used them from the pump station to go all the way down the street, the bypass pump. So I mean,
if he's replacing 40 at 50 feet, Chief, you said it was 50 feet?
Yeah, they're 50-foot.
That's about
lengths
2,000
there.
they'd be sending you. Jason, you're
Alright.
saying that you would need more than 2,000?
Well, if I have to do double pumping, yes, because
Well-
sometimes you have to set 2 4-inch trash pumps up, and like for the pump station for its, just the pump station alone, you need at least 8 inches of flow. So that would be the 2 4-inch hoses, 2-inch to 4-inch hoses that they have. I have all 3 trash pumps. We're out of 3-inch hose already, or 2.5-inch hose, sorry.
Okay.
So this would actually help us out. Why it helps them out. It's like a,
Yeah. Chief, you wanted to comment?
Yeah, and I just, Jason keyed on it, and you got to remember for the council and the budget committee's knowledge. So when I say lengths of hose and attack hose, the most common sizes are of hose line that we use in the fire service is 1 3/4. That's our primary attack line. We use 2.5-inch diameter hose. That's for our bigger buildings, our commercial buildings, and we use 3-inch hose for supplying larger streams, supplying standpipe connections in our commercial and residential buildings like 230 Kinderkamak, and our 5-inch diameter hose, which is starting to get up there in age. That's our supply line. So I'm
But
sure
of those hoses, Jason, which hoses would you want? And if we add the extra 5,000, would they be hoses that would be transferred? Jason, you're muted.
I'm sorry, I had no other questions. What was the question? I'm sorry.
Okay, the chief just was describing the hoses that he uses from 1.5 to 5 inches, if I got it correct. You're looking for which size hoses, Jason?
Mayor, all of his hoses work, whether it's a 2-inch trash pump, 3-inch or 4-inch. The 5 works on the 4.
So
with
let
the
me then
adapter.
turn to the council. Would the council be interested in restoring the 5,000 to the hose line? So going back up to 10, is the council interested in doing that?
I would, given the climate issues we've been having, yes.
I
Right.
agree.
Could I have a motion and a second, please?
So moved.
So second,
Been moved in second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, any abstention? Okay, so we're restoring the hose line to 10,000, which means the total goes from 90 to 95.2 thousand for the fire department. Is everyone in agreement? Well, let me rephrase it. Is there any objection? Hearing none, and Chris, you've updated that, right? Yeah.
Are you taking it out of 2024 then? That 5,000 in 2024 isn't necessary, right?
Yeah,
correct. That's correct, Ellen.
good catch, Ellen. Are we good? I don't mean to cut anybody short, but we've already been on for 2 hours, and I'd like for us to cover as much as we could. All right. Chief, anything else before we wish you well?
No, that's it. I appreciate everybody's time and understanding and your questions. And if anybody has any questions, you certainly know how to find me.
Thank
Who's
you.
that?
Thank
Where
you,
are
Chief.
we now?
Thank you.
Chief.
Thanks, Chief.
Okay, we are in the administration and other miscellaneous equipment requests.
Which tab is that to see the 5-year plan?
Yes.
Oh, I
So,
see it. It's the 5th tab.
Yeah.
I apologize. All right, everyone, we want to turn to the tab just before the borough clerk. And it looks like you have 2 pages here. They're duplicate pages. No problem. All right, everybody, the very last page.
so based on what's on the screen, I have document scanning at 55,000. That is for this digitizing of building department records and inventorying and purging of borough records. It's a little higher than what was in my 5-year plan last year because it didn't incorporate going to the police side, and they have many records that need to be indexed. Unfortunately, the purging won't be too much because of their retention periods are sometimes either permanent or 75 years. However, with what's going to happen and relocating personnel and files. Some files may not be accessible to send for scanning. So in order to provide some type of cushion for this capital budget, but still get the police side inventoried, that 55 could be dropped down to 45.
Oh. Okay.
Okay, so we're changing that to 45. Go ahead.
Server upgrade and installation. This is the server for Borough Hall. Our server has to be separate from the police department. And from a cybersecurity perspective, with being in compliance with the GIF cybersecurity plan, and in Bergen County, we're one of like maybe 2 or 3 towns that are fully compliant. We need to upgrade our server. And Nick from QuickText confirmed yesterday that our current server is 5 years old and the operating system is 2 versions behind. So for the security of borough records that has residence records, we need to upgrade our server.
Okay.
For the computers and IT equipment, it is just to have funding in place every other year for the replacement of computers and at the desk for the offices. Last year, I used the reserve to replace the finance department computers, building, and health department, because they were still running on Windows XP, and that's also a security issue. So this is just to have a fund to replenish our computers. And as you see, it's to build in every other year. I'm not putting in the 20,000 that was in prior years because of all the changes, all the upgrades last year. The workstations for the library, Dara already addressed that. For OEM, Stu is requesting radio upgrades. If you go to the OEM Office of Emergency Management tab, he has his justification there. And that's all part of the new trunking system and to be able to communicate with police and fire. Yeah, he says in his narrative, Stu wrote, the current portable radios are going to be non-functional next year. So this would be 2 radios, one for the coordinator and one for the deputy coordinator. So it's 2 radios for $12,000. And for the passenger van, Stu is recommending to transport for OEM to use in emergencies and transport, since the current senior bus requires a CDL driver. If you'd like, we could ask Stu to attend the March 2nd meeting to explain that justification and just hold that off.
Yeah, I think I think we take that out of the budget for now until we have an explanation, given this year's budget.
Okay.
Agreed.
Is there any objection from council?
None.
So Ann and I will coordinate to invite Stu for Wednesday night's meeting.
Can I just ask a question?
Sorry, go ahead. No, you go ahead, Ellen.
And maybe Stu will answer this, but are we able to provide the bus currently, or is he saying we don't have a CDL driver and we don't have that service available? I guess maybe that's a question for Stu when he comes on, but I think that's important to understand if we're unable to provide a service because of that.
Well, the other issue is, we only have 1 senior bus. So if during a storm or something happens to that vehicle, then your transportation program's done. But the senior bus falls under the DPW. So it'd be best to discuss that with Jason while he's here.
Jason, you want to chime in?
Yes, Mayor. Our senior bus is getting older. It is CDL. It needs to have a CDL driver. Unfortunately, during OEM events, we are unable to provide that driver due to all of my guys are out on the road, and the normal senior bus driver most likely will not come in when it's flooding and trees are down everywhere. What I was looking to do down the road is actually get a senior, when we replace the senior bus, is to get a van with an ADA lift on it. So it doesn't have to be a CDL bus anymore. It'll actually save money down the road because that big bus is like 165,000, where a van would be about 65,000 with the ADA lift. That's something that I was going to talk a little more with Lizette, because last time this was funded, it was funded through the Board of Chosen Freeholders. So I don't know if that's still something we could do, but that's where that was looking to go eventually. I was looking to go eventually. So we don't have this big massive bus that we don't need anymore.
And you're thinking that that would be next year's budget?
Yeah, we could put that in next year's budget, or I could talk to Stu if this is something that is crucial to the, and I know this year's budget's pretty heavy now, but if this is something crucial, we can possibly move it up. So in the event there is a storm or any of that, the chief could either have somebody drive it, or the fire department can have somebody drive it.
All right, so Jason, you don't have an objection to us taking it out of this year's budget because we'd be looking at it in next year's budget. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I mean, unless Stu has something different on his mind, but that's where I was looking to go.
Is the council in agreement? Yes, okay. Hearing no objection, we'll move on.
I have another question about to Lizette. The 5 workstations from the library, are they in the budget twice? Once in the library portion, once here?
No.
It's in the library portion for the tabs, but the way Chris has this spreadsheet set up is how bond counsel would draft the bond ordinance. So certain things have to be grouped based on useful life expectancy or what the purpose is.
You know,
So it's only once.
I meant to ask this earlier. I don't know if it's inappropriate now about the 5 workstations. Those are just desks, right? Or is there more to it?
I believe there's more to it. It's more than just a desk. Is kind of like an entire work area, like a standing cubicle for the employees. It's more than just a desk. I could forward that information if you would require it.
I'd like to see it. Yeah, I'd like to understand, because it seems $3,000 a workstation seems like a big chunk of money for that. And, you know, I'd just like to understand a little more about it.
Why don't we make that issue number 2 when we return? So issue number 1 is the cameras. Issue number 2 when we return will be the workstations.
Okay. I'll make sure you have that for Wednesday.
Lisa, can I just ask you a quick question? The doc scanning, is that going to stop at some point or become a much lower number?
Once we're caught up with the billing department, it will eventually become a lower. It would be a constant service, an annual service, but at a much lower number once we catch up.
And when do you think we'll be there?
Honestly, it depends. It would take about 7 to 10 years, not including any delays with this construction project and accessing the physical records.
Thank you.
And hopefully by then the state would say you could get rid of paper completely, but that's wishful thinking.
All right, why don't we carry on?
Okay, so that concludes my section. So the rest, it falls
Lizette, I'm
under
gonna
public
stop you for a
works.
second. In your section, in the tab, you also have Shade Tree Committee tree planting program. But do you want to wait on that or not?
Oh yes, that falls down on your book under Parks and Fields. The Shade Tree Committee has asked for funding for tree planting, 20,000 out of their operating line and 19,000. Initially, they wanted it from our open space trust fund, but our trust fund is limited and should be used to offset the various grants for park improvements and is up for renewal this year. And the best use, and this was done by my predecessor, is to move tree planting as a capital expense, and that is something that the bond council also agrees on. So this $19,000 figure was requested by the Shade Tree Commission.
Now, what we do with the shade tree, just to give everyone a history, is we fund them every other year because there are ancillary costs. They have to get a flatbed. They have to hire usually a outside landscaping company, and there are water bags, a whole bunch of other things. So, and what we've done in the past, we've agreed to do that, and so it tends to be a pretty big number like this. So I just would like to say I'm in favor of it for those reasons, because that's what we've done in the past, but also because this is one of the few areas that actually help with the property value. Shaded lanes help with curb appeal and therefore maintain. And so these are maintain the overall property value of our residency in our town. And so it's one of those things that has a positive impact on the overall value of the town, and therefore is one of those things we do for the residents that I think we should continue to do. So I would hope the council would support the $19,000 for this year. And then, of course, we would see nothing the following year. And then depending on grants, we would see, that's why they don't have a number for 2024, though I'll let the liaison talk to the actual conversations. But having been Shade Tree for a liaison for a number of years, I'm just offering the background that has happened in the past.
Yeah, Mayor, that is correct. And just to add context, that 19,000 will be roughly about 45 trees. Trees are costly. I began to understand that. But that will be what they are, the 19,000 will cover.
And it also might be interested, Jason, if you can chime in if you're still with us. I think we take down 100 or more trees a year. So we are almost always behind the curve.
Yes, Mayor, we're in between the curb and yes, and the sidewalk.
No, I meant curve as in figurative language. We're behind the curve in the number of trees we're planting versus the number of trees we're taking down. How many trees, if you know, how many trees in general do we take down a year?
We take down roughly 250 to 300 trees in trims. We are a little bit behind the 8-ball on trees. We've actually had discussions with Liz, the police department, and myself. And with some of the more trees coming down due to the locations of the older trees, there will be a need to plant more in other locations to start growing back the arboretum. So yes, we do take down a lot of trees. Plus, we lose a lot of trees during storms now. A lot of the bigger oaks recently came down. So.
And Jason, that number doesn't include trees that are removed by constructions and private properties, correct? So
that's about all the trees that we lose. Okay. To be honest with you, that's like the total amount of trees that we lose, whether they're little saplings or 75-foot oaks. That's about all the trees per year. That's some years were a little higher due to disease.
No, Jason, I think she was referring to the ones that property owners take down.
Oh yeah, no, that's just the borough-owned trees. That's not even ours.
Right. I just wanted for clarification for the audience. Yes.
So the $19,000 doesn't even keep up with what we're losing, and we certainly don't want to, start to have an urban field. So that's why I wanted to give a full-throated support of that 19,000.
Well, it does keep up though, right? It's 422 trees, and Jason said they're losing 250 to 300. So
no, it's 45 trees we're planting.
45.
Oh, 40. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
It's 45 versus 200.
Sorry, I'm looking at the wrong. Yeah.
So we're losing an extra, we're diminishing by 200 a year at the current situation. So
It's bad.
I would say, let's put more money there, but we just can't this year.
And they try to maximize as much as possible, Jennifer, with the grants to help absorb some of the costs while the grants still exist. But Jen is very diligent in making sure the borough has a complete and competitive application.
And Jennifer, of course, is the vice chair of the Shade Tree Commission. All right, why don't we carry on? Oh, wait, is there approval for the temporary approval? Of course, these are all temporary approvals. Is there a temporary approval for the administrative budget as found under the administrative tab and the ancillary items that she mentioned that are not under the administrative tab? Could I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed, any abstain? Hearing none?
Since there's so much under DPW, do you want to take a
Oh,
5-minute
actually,
break?
does that motion second, I did not mention that it was reducing document scanning from 55 to 45. Was it the council's understanding that that's what they were voting on?
Correct. So moved.
Yes.
Okay, all right, then we can,
Second.
where'd you want to go, Lizette?
No, since under Public Works, there's so many items, if you want to take a break before starting that, or just
Anyone
go
need a
full
break?
speed ahead.
Yeah, let's take a 5-minute.
All right, so see you all back
Great.
here in 5 minutes. All right, we're just waiting for a few people to come back. Camera is on, if you could. So we have, I have a new business item I'd like to introduce before we return to the budget item. And it's your birthday, isn't it?
It is.
And it's today, isn't it?
Yes.
Everybody together. Happy birthday
birthday
to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy
Happy
birthday,
birthday, dear Anne.
Happy
Happy
birthday
birthday
to you. Oh my God, it sounds like cats in a room full of
Oh
rocking
my God,
chairs.
yes.
We should never start a band.
I
Never.
think
Thank you
we
so
need to stick
much.
to our day jobs.
That's right. I've been often told that.
Thank you all.
Okay. You're welcome. All right, Lizette.
Yes, so the next section involves Public Works. They have various items involving vehicles and equipment, roads, sidewalks, curbs, facilities, sewer improvement. So Jason gets to be the star of the show for this section.
Oh, could I have a quick item? We will be talking about open space on Monday. So without objection, I'd like to move the rec presentation to the next meeting. Is there objection?
No objection.
No
No
objection.
objection.
All right. Carolyn, you're more than welcome to stay because there might be things that you are going to want to chime in on with Public Works, but if not, we will not be going to your budget until the next meeting, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
I'll still listen in.
Good. All right, Jason, take it away.
All right, thanks, Mayor. Sorry for the camera. For some reason, it's not working. It's going on and off. But yes. So in this budget, I just want to relay to you all that it has changed a little bit. My 5-year outlook has changed, whether it be in roads, the buildings, or equipment. Of course, with the equipment, this year, I'm looking for 2 vehicles and some radio upgrades. I'm a little behind on that. I will start out on the tri-axle roll-off. This roll-off will pretty much replace 2 vehicles. So this will be a 2-for-1. Both vehicles, 7.4 is a 1997 with a rusted firewall in it falling out. And the second vehicle is a 2001 tandem dump truck, which is completely rotted on the floorboards and pretty much the frame. Each vehicle used to offset each other. So when one was broken, the other one would always come in. But now, since they're both really far gone, they need to be replaced. So instead of incurring 2 vehicle costs, I figured to move this into one and save us on the back end when it comes to the mechanical side. Obviously, shrinking the fleet saves money. Second vehicle was on next year's budget for 2023. But recently the body has fallen down on the back, rotted out. And this is a 2005 pickup truck that we have dumped a little bit of money into, and more money would be needed than the truck is worth at this point. It does have 126,000 miles on it, hard miles. That will pretty much replace, it's a utility body, so that's the general repairs vehicle. The next thing is the
stop here
rate.
for a second. I just want to make sure everybody realizes we're in the DPW tab, and there's at least 5 pages. So you have to go back if you want to be able to find where we are. And just as we switch from a spreadsheet page to a table page, that's where Jason's going, and he's going in order, so that if any member of council or on the committee is wondering, other than what you're seeing on the screen, they can see it in their book. Sorry to interrupt you, Jason.
Jason, just also quickly, the Mack triaxle, that was in last year's book for 300. So it went up in price 20%. Is that right?
Yes, just like the Chief Critty said, vehicles are going up in price. Also, the time frame on that vehicle is 2 years. So if we ordered this in July, I'm not going to see this until 2024, early 2024. So I got to keep those trucks going. So I did extend the program out a little bit to try to ease the burden of the garbage trucks, but they're going up, and these are specialty trucks. So the problem with specialty trucks, it's not like a Ford pickup truck. This is not going to go back down. Once they start setting parameters, they're going to go up. This is always 2 companies involved. So it's not only Mack Trucks, say. You also have to deal with American Roll-Off, the body and chassis company that puts it on there. So there's a lot of things that go with this, and a lot of different companies that build these trucks. It's almost like a rescue pumper. You got to deal with a million different entities. This truck will also, just so everybody knows, replacing the 2 trucks, this one will also come with a plow, salt spreader, container. So it will be used year round. This will also help us down the road with 30-yard containers. Right now we have hook lift trucks that pretty much cannot lift a 30-yard container and bring it to market. This will be able to remove anything, any debris containers we have out. The $150,000 radio replacement program, I found out by the chief this year that my radios will not work as soon as we turn over to the new system due to the upgrade, like Chief Critty said. I do have 30 vehicles in the fleet, from foreman's vehicles to mason dumps to garbage trucks to everything. This will replace 15 of those radios. It'll also give us the dispatch unit that we have down in the office, and this will also cover 2 portable radios. What I'm looking to do is a two-phase program here. This, of course, this will be the first 15, and then the next year will be the next 15. We use this, obviously we need to be up with the cops. I'm doing it this way because the mason dumps are in the active shooter program that we have for street closures. So I have to be able to communicate with the cops on these lines and the fire department. I don't know if the chief has something else to add to that, but that's the outlook. That's why it's so much so fast. I was unaware of this.
Yeah, I can just chime in real quick. You'll hear more about it when I talk about the regular budget, because it is one particular line item to cover what is our existing repeater system, but it's so antiquated. It's the reason why we went to the county trunk system. And Jason is, by putting it in 2 years, it should work out fine. We're going to need to keep this, our repeater system, 1 more year, just to make sure all the kinks are ironed out and the rest of the departments start moving over. So everyone's on the same page, and then we'll still have the repeater system. We just won't be spending as much money to keep it up. And again, I'll explain that in the regular budget, but I'm in complete agreement that we do need, Jason needs to move over with us on that. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Pretty much that's the capital requests I had this year. If you look at 23, 24, and 25, I did move a lot of stuff around due to the building end. And like I said, to be able to draw things out a little longer. And of course, next year and this year, well, next year really, to try to absorb some of the costs of the building side. And that's where I sit with the vehicles at this time.
Mr. Mayor,
Is there any question from Councilor? Go ahead.
Yeah, just wanted to say that the Finance Committee last year, myself, Michelle, and Joe, we met with Jason down at the DPW last winter. And he gave us a tour of the DPW, the facilities, showed us issues, and there are many down there with the facility, but also gave us a tour of some of this equipment that he's asking for replacement now. And it is certainly time. I am no expert, but from what he showed me, these pieces need to be replaced. So this is all stuff that needs to be done. And I would certainly say to the council that this is something that we should vote for.
I strongly agree. Okay, is there a further discussion or comment from the committee or from the council? Could I have a motion to temporary, of course, we understand that, temporarily approve as presented?
So moved.
Second.
All all in favor?
Aye.
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 Is there any abstention or opposition? Hearing none, continue.
Okay, road improvements. This is based on the 5-year plan that I presented last year to this council. Obviously, we're behind on roads throughout the last 10 years. Some years we have not spent the adequate money on roads. It was only about $100,000, so it finds us way behind. In this program, roads will change based on the destruction of the plows, just everyday use. So some roads might be pushed back, some roads might be moved forward. So that would change sometimes the ADA side of this, but I do try to keep the roads that I'm moving around to the same tonnage rates. So the price doesn't go too crazy. With this year, one thing I am worried about is the price of oil. Asphalt is a petroleum-based product. Now, my program is a 15-year program, knowing that the program most likely would have to be moved to 20 years as years like this happen. When petroleum-based products go up, we're probably going to do less roads. That is on the program. That's just, unless we're willing to fund more money towards that, which once you set a program up, I wouldn't suggest doing that. Just scale back. So again, it was a 15-year program knowing we were doing 20. This 483, I do have a list of roads. I'm afraid.
So I'm just going to stop you there for a second, Jason. Lizette, Chris, and Jason, in the book, the summary sheet, it's 442,640. Is that the number? Are we talking about the same number? The 483 has changed from 442?
That That number is all inclusive with engineering costs and police outside duty.
Okay, so I get it now. So you're talking about the total cost number, which is in bold.
Correct.
Very good. No problem. I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page. Because if you look in the book, and everybody, I had referenced the binder, it says 442,640. But of course, that doesn't include the engineering cost or the outside duty. And that's why the number in the binder is different from the number that Jason is talking about.
But the 2024 number got changed, right, Jason? Because in the book we have 804.
Yes, because that got changed due to, there was a big change there. What was that for? I would have to look. I don't know offhand. There was a reason for that change. I believe that was because of the KBG change, where we're going with that with the parking lots, because part of that's a road.
No. What was on 2024, there's an asterisk. It includes adding 6 spaces and 300-foot drainage pipe to the Fenway and Lee.
Yes. So the Fenway and Lee, they have drainage issues bad. There's only one basin on an entire loop. We have a lot of erosion going on there. So that will have to be talked about a little more in our meetings with the engineer meetings. But that is for all pipe and drainage added to the street program. And then if you look down, I tried to even it out for the next 4 years. The reason why I don't extend the program right now is there's no way I can foresee what roads would be going bad. Since the program's gotten so distorted over the years from the initial, some of the roads that were paved in 2008 are falling away, might be falling away than roads that would be paved in 1998. So 1998 road might be better than that 2009 road. Since we didn't keep up on a program to consistently go through at a set rate, like a 20-year program, we're making our new program pretty much based on how the roads are, what roads are bad, what roads are good, and based on that. So I cannot outlook. I would have to wait to 2024 to be able to extend the program because I can't see what's going to be bad in 2026. I just don't know.
Jason, I want to interrupt you there for the public's benefit and anyone watching this on YouTube. Since Jason's talking about which roads would be done and which roads would not want to be done, I want the public to understand, and Jason, feel free to chime in on this, that the council doesn't decide which roads. The council decides on the funding. That you and Mr. Costa make a objective, not subjective, an objective decision about roads from year to year, which is what you're referring to now. That the council has, of its own choosing, since I've been on it, has chosen not to decide which roads get done and which roads doesn't, and that we don't get into that conversation. If you could just comment on that so that could be a part of the record.
Yes, Mayor. This is definitely, like the program says, X amount of tons that get done is a suggestion from the mayor, the engineer and myself to the mayor and council. And then of course the mayor and council makes the decision based on the funds that are available.
And if I could add, any roads that are seen specifically mentioned, like you see Boger and Continental, is because those are roads that we solicited grants for based on the condition. Some roads are eligible for a state grant or a community development block grant under the federal program. Otherwise, the generic road program under the Riverside Cooperative, we are a member with several other municipalities to try to draw in the best price and for the quantities.
And just remember, this program can also, go ahead, sorry.
Joe, so for the public's benefit, whether a road nearby or a road you feel is of concern is something you can convey to the business administrator and would be shared with the engineer and the Jason, who is our superintendent of public works, but it doesn't come before the council because we want to keep the politics out of it. what we're trying to do is maintain our roads as fast as possible, and we do a great job, I believe, with little or no political maneuvering. Simply what is the greatest need and what would be the most appropriate use of our funds. Go ahead, Jason.
Correct. And of course, this program can be accelerated or go backwards. It all depends, of course, on the cost. So again, that's the number we came up with. But
Sorry,
again,
Jason, how many roads is this for?
this is for right now, I believe 10 roads are on the list. I'm afraid that, and I'm just going to say that with the price of petroleum, I don't think 10 roads is going to be done this year. It's probably going to fall to the 7 worst ones, starting from 1 to 10 on that list. Again, we'll talk more, and the finance committee has always talked about this, and since I've come on, that some years is better to overload this to retract some years. So when the price of asphalt's low, that's when you want to accelerate your program here. But when the asphalt's high like this year, that's where you retract your program. You know, saying, hey, we did X amount the year before, we don't need to do X amount this year because the price is up. So this is always revolving, but we're trying to stick with a steady amount going across, at least for the next 4 to 5 years, until we can get a lot of those damaged roads back up to where they're supposed to be.
So Jason, we should have a number in there for 2026, correct?
I cannot put, well, you could put the base number there, but I can't, I don't know what the roads are. It could be Fifth Ave that needs to be repaved again, and that road's huge. That road could be 650,000 by itself. There's no way I could foresee what the plows are gonna do to the roads. Because again, we're building this, Michelle. We're building this program. It's not a program that was installed years ago. There was one from the 90s, but again, since it was underfunded for so many years, that program no longer works. So right now, from 2020 to moving on forward, we're building the program as the streets are deteriorating.
I just don't want to leave it empty because then we kind of underestimate.
Well, I could always build that up for next year. Again, I've been looking over this 5-year capital plan from buildings to streets to the equipment lately. And I'm trying to, I guess, look at, of course, everything's a domino, right? So if you do when we get to the borough buildings, you're going to see why. So I'm trying to, I have to redo the 5-year plan. This is a good area, but I can't go past 2026 because I just can't foresee where that's going to go.
Why don't we
I don't even know the
table
grants
this conversation and take it up with the finance committee. Jason, why don't you sit down with the finance committee, say in a month or two, and share those concerns?
Well,
Just
the other
for
thing,
efficiency of this meeting, let's move on.
Yeah, because just really fast, the other thing, it's based on grants too. So there's a lot more than just our road program. It's based on a lot of things.
But just to end this conversation, I agree with Council President Kaufman that maybe what we should just simply be doing is putting $500,000 in the budget for the next 10 to 15 years or 20. And the council should just always anticipate that that's going to be the ballpark. But let's not talk about it anymore. Let's move on, okay?
Gotcha. Okay, next thing. Sidewalk program. Where are we here? So the ADA ramps.
Stop. Is the council comfortable with this portion of the budget? If so, could I have a motion? If not, could I have comments?
Comfortable.
Moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Go ahead, Jason.
Okay. I guess this section's done then. Do you want me to talk about the ADA ramps?
I want you to talk about everything, but in our binder books, your vehicles was one, which we took a vote on. And then you jump to roads and program, which is another, which is why I asked for a vote. You have a sheet here for building and grounds. You have a sheet for
yeah, but I'm saying what's up on the screen. I'm getting confused because
so what we
what's up on
just
the screen is
approved,
still the same portion.
what we just approved was 483,000 $230.
So we're going line by line. I didn't know if you just approved the whole screen.
No, I've just approved that part. Because in our binder, there are separate sheets.
Oh, okay. So the next thing is ADA ramps. This is a standard you have to do with the roads you are paving. Any road that is being paved has to be updated to ADA standards. That's your ramps and your runouts. What we also do is if we're paving like Manning Ave and we own sidewalk or curbing, from here on out, we will be replacing that. So say if it's like Manning Ave by the Oak Ditch and we're paving that road, that will all be replaced. So that street is 100% done. But these are all standards that have to be met due to the road, just in general, the DOT standards due to the road improvement program. You have to do these. You can't just leave an ADA ramp anymore and just move on. You can get in a lot of trouble for that. We learned that with the grant process. So, in some of the classes we took. Second thing is the 2022 Bogart Road Grant. This is section 6.
Hold on. So you just finished with ADA ramps and sidewalks.
Oh, I forgot you got the book.
Yeah, 170,800.
I have a question.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
okay.
Yeah, I have a question. In our package, there's also traffic and engineering, and it comes up to 196,000. But here it says 173. So,
Chris, can you go to that screenshot instead of the 5-year outlook? Can you go to that one screen that you had all that on?
The 2022 ordinance
Yeah.
tab.
This screen's a little better, I think, to go off of, so you can actually see the costs and the final amounts, especially when we're talking about engineering and outside duty stuff, because that doesn't have all this added.
is it on here? Is it on
Yeah,
this-
it's right across. So if you see section 20 costs, just for the people watching, that is your engineering costs. When you see outside duty, that is your police costs, obviously for traffic control. And then Chris can talk on behalf of the other stuff. You'll see total costs. And then the debt service and capital funds, that's Chris. So if you go straight across, it's construction. Section 20 cost, engineers, outside duty costs, police, and then total cost. So the total cost is what we're looking at.
In our books, Jason, it has 170,800. So I guess engineering went up to 37 as opposed to 25.
No, what had happened was we sped up the program last year to be further ahead, considering the time it takes to do the survey and design and bidding. So that Jason didn't have that number. That's my updated number based on actions that we had previously taken.
Okay, thanks, Lizette.
Jason, just a quick question. Does this program take into account the conversation we had earlier that Councilman Kinigo began regarding the flashers and the installation program for those? That someone had mentioned that there was the ramps had to be ADA compliant first. Do you have to be mindful of what ADA ramps you were doing to make sure that we can implement those flashers? I just wanted to make a comment about that and make sure that I understood that in context.
Yes. So when the flasher program started, we were unaware, or the people in charge of it were unaware you couldn't just put flashers up, you needed ADA ramps. So the ramps were put in outside this program to initially start. Moving forward, all the locations that were already marked for the next couple of years are already up to date, with the exception of Kinnicamack Road and Reservoir. If we do come to a street that is traffic and safety wants RFPs put on, the flashers, we will, of course, update that street and put them on that street at that time. We're not going to jump streets anymore just to put the flashers on. So right now we're doing Bogart Road under a grant. In that grant process, the flasher in front of Cherry Hill School will be installed, just like Continental. So right now, Continental and Elm just got done in front of the library and the bump outs. They will be getting flashers. Also the intersection of Elm and Continental. So in this program and moving forward, the locations that were looked at, say Howland Ave, are already up to code. I've actually, since this problem came up with Reservoir and Kinnekumack, I did go around with our engineer, Jason Flores, and from Cost Engineering, and we did look at all the other locations suggested by Traffic and Safety. Those are all up to today's codes. We would just have to do a little of adjustment for the base of the signal.
Okay,
So,
thanks for the explanation, Jason.
okay.
Okay, at this point, I think I am going to hold the vote until we finish because in the explanation Jason's has offered, it seems like we're dealing with several different lines simultaneously. So we will hold off vote. Jason, keep going line by line, and then we'll have a vote at the end and any recommendations from the council to increase or decrease at that time.
Okay. Okay, so Continental Bogart Road project for the $42,400. That's section 7. I'm assuming that's the soft costs. That is a grant. So those costs will be that.
Yes, before you continue, Jay, I just want to add, we did apply for section 6 last year. The construction is not in this budget because the state has not advised whether we are awarded anything and what amount, if anything. So
yes,
that's why you don't see 6 here, but you saw it in the prior year plan.
Yes.
That explains what happens if they give approval. Would we then need to find that money?
Yes, it also depends when they give approval, what timeline they provide. Like if it's something that can wait until next year's budget, then we'll do so and just move forward with what we have from last year's budget to at least start the survey and design. But it all depends on, number 1, receiving the award, number 2, finding out how much it is, and number 3, what deadline the state imposes.
Okay, thank you.
So the next project is Continental. That's from last year. I believe that's the paving costs that are still up. Am I correct?
No, that's for the next grant. It was recommended that amount be put as a placeholder. So this is for the next section of Continental.
If we get awarded it.
Yes.
Okay. I didn't know that.
It's because you have to do the engineering before the project starts. So you're budgeting 1 year ahead for the engineering so that you're not trying to start the engineering when you're looking to actually pave the roads.
Correct.
Yeah,
but
what had happened is Continental was actually awarded after the budget was adopted in 2020, but there was such a tight deadline. Remember last year we introduced a temporary bond ordinance for the Continental Avenue project. So we're trying to prevent that from happening again.
Okay. Okay. We were going to do the lot down at KBG, but since we got flagged by JIF, fire company lots number 1 and 2 need to be replaced. JIF did come to us and state that they did not pass.
Jason, I'm going to interrupt you again. I apologize. For the public's benefit, JIF stands for Joint Insurance Fund.
Yes.
Keep going.
So the JIF did come in, flag us for that. So we did move the money here due to things still going on at KBG and to replace this. This includes everything. So this includes the asphalt, the sidewalk, the curbing, and the apron of company 1 and 2, because there is deterioration in the concrete. So that's an all-in number of all the parking lots. So they're done correctly. So we're not just paving and moving on and there's concrete problems. So.
And ADA ramps there too?
Yes, we will be installing, our engineering company and I were out there, we'll be installing a ADA ramp that crosses the street to, from the back parking lot of Fire Company 1 to the Borough Hall side, and update that area for the crossing.
Can I just, the numbers in our book for engineering and traffic control were 11,642 and it went up to 24,500. Just, did someone just refigure that out or?
With company 1 and 2, I had more updated estimates for the section 20 cost and the outside duty.
Okay,
So those are real-time numbers.
okay.
Is where company 1 is and you're doing that work, is that somewhere where we should be possibly considering flashers? Since it's Kindercomac and it's close to the school there too?
In that area, to be honest with you, I don't think you need flashers there. We
Okay.
can consider flashers at, the next meeting. But that's gonna, we could use the flashers for this year to that location. We could put the basin for them, just in case we do decide. I could talk a little bit more with Jason from Costas on that.
And I think that's something that should be vetted by traffic and safety anyway. I just wanted to bring it up as a possible idea, so maybe we should talk about it at the next meeting.
Oh, definitely. We will have the 30,000. That's just below that. So we would have the money to be able to do that and add to it. But again, we're bringing that all up to standards because next year that is on the paving street. That's one of the paving roads. So.
Yeah, well, look, as far as the flashers themselves are concerned, I think there's other areas in town that have a greater priority. I'm just saying that if we are doing this project and it is something that we should consider, then we should at the very least talk about it.
No,
So
correct.
Jason, would you make sure that's added to the agenda for the next meeting?
Definitely. And then Voorhees drainage, that's, we decided to put this in this year. Obviously, it wasn't in the last 5 years, since Ida hit and a couple other smaller storms. Some of the residents are getting really flooded out there from Kensington to Madison Ave. This is trying to alleviate the flooding and to at least lower it so it doesn't get to the houses, so it has time to drain out down to the Hackensack River. So these are the costs that our engineer has put together. Again, that's still a work in progress. We're still working on the plans for that and
So let me chime in a little bit there, Jason. This flooding is due to our infrastructure that worked when it was put in. This is a problem that actually was the first thing I dealt with before I was even a council person, when I was a candidate. So this problem goes back 10 years. Initially, the problem was all sorts of clogging due to branches and everything. We cleaned that out. Jason, I think we removed like 24 dump truck loads of garbage back then. Yeah. And
Yes.
and since then it's been working well, but as our weather changes, what's happening is there are summer showers and winter storms that are not flooding anywhere else in town, but they are flooding out Voorhees Avenue. And now they're also flooding out Memorial Park and the house right next to it. And Jason and Bob Costa have looked into this, and I've been at a couple of meetings, and it's a subcommittee of myself, Michelle, and Indira, right? And we've been looking into this, and what we've discovered is there just is too much water moving through the system, and it's backing up on Voorhees and adjacent blocks, but it's also backing up all the way to Memorial Park. So this is the most cost-effective solution that Jason and Mr. Costa have been able to come up with that will not solve the problem. It won't prevent flooding, but it will prevent flooding that causes property damage. So it's an overflow system. And it's and I strongly recommend it to the council that we move forward with this, because I think essentially we're liable, because this flooding is not due to nature. This flooding is due to our infrastructure, which did work in 1920, but isn't working in 2020.
Correct, Mayor. Of course, this is the area where, just so the council gets a little background here fast, this is the area where all the drainage comes together. So this is not only coming from down the middle of Oak Ave, this is also picking up Elm Ave drainage. And then it of course, it all connects there. and then it shoots out down by Wayne. What we're trying to do is trying to bypass a little bit, as I would say, Wayne, and try to make it, I guess, more smooth for the water to go, more of a flow rate for the water to go without disturbing, disturbing and greating the environment, digging out, trenching, and doing all that stuff to our ditches, which would be a nightmare. So this is a good plan that Rob has put together to try to alleviate this. Any other questions on that? Nope. Okay, CBG reservoir. So we started reservoir, we did all the curbing, we paved reservoir. This is a grant that we received for the CDBG.
Jason, I'm going to stop you there again. Would you, for the public's benefit, explain CDGB?
I could explain that. That's through the Community Development Block Grant. That's a federal program. And the way it works, funding is provided for municipal improvements if there is a census tract with a low to moderate income household. From the 2010 census, the area of Reservoir, Oxford, Rutgers fell into that category. And over the years, either roads have been paved or sidewalks have been replaced. This here in Reservoir is for sidewalk and ADA ramp replacement. The 2020 figures have not been quantified yet. In the event the borough loses its census tract, then in order to qualify for community development block grant funding, we can only make ADA improvements to municipal infrastructure, municipal buildings like new doorways, widening the doorways, or bathrooms. So this is a program that eventually will dry out, but we're trying to maximize any infrastructure improvements while we do have a qualifying census tract.
And just to add to that, over the last 10 or so years, we've, Lizette, correct me if I'm off, we've bet the taxpayers of River Edge have benefited in millions of dollars in funding that did not come from property tax, but came from other sources that might have gone somewhere else, but we were able to bring it to River Edge and therefore lessen the tax burden.
Correct. The grant funds the hard cost, the construction cost. So we receive funding on a reimbursement basis. That's why you see on the line here under grant 75,000. That is our award, and depending what we spend, we could get back up to 75,000 on this project.
So this is a really great thing for River Edge, and I want to thank this council and councils for the last 10 years for making an effort to, diminish the cost to the taxpayer for these capital improvements. Anything else, Jason?
No, that's all, Mayor. That's this whole sheet.
All right, I turn to the council and the committee. Questions, comments, thoughts? If none, then we would move to a temporary improvement. Of course, there'll be another meeting, but we would just be saying that at this time, we approve this. Hearing nothing, could I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any abstentions, any opposition? None opposed. Great. Okay, Lizette.
Okay, we scroll down, we're on facilities improvements. If you go to the, we're up to Fire Company 1 windows.
And that was in last year's budget for 30,000. I was just wondering why that went up so much.
Let's see.
Windows went from,
Michelle, only because the public will be listening. I think what you meant to say, and I don't mean to correct you, but I don't make people misunderstanding. What you're saying is that it was proposed for 30,000
Correct.
for
Yes.
this year, but it wasn't actually in the budget.
Correct.
so I can answer that really quick. First, it was going to be a 2-year plan to do the windows. We were going to do the bulk of them at 30,000 because of where we were with the budget, and then whatever was left, we were going to put this year. These were moved off over the course of this year. Windows have gone from $500 for good windows all the way up to $850, $900 just for the window. These windows, these are the better Anderson windows. I'll give you a little rundown. We had windows fall in the fire department on company one with the winds this last year. We had the 2 front windows, so they have a board across them right now. They literally broke. So with that being said, we decided just to do them all in one shot. We did get a cost of installation and removal of the windows, and it was just shy of this back in October. So the plan is now is to keep this number. Hopefully that'll be enough and we can get a contractor in here to do them all for that number. But if not, still do it in phases, maybe get the bulk of them out of the way and then have 1 or 2 or 3 of them that will just have to be placed till next year. I was not able to get in touch with the contractor that gave us the estimate just for the budget. But I believe we could still get it done for that number. Any questions? You good? Second thing is HVAC. No, that was this year. Emergency repair program. That's the 75,000 for the buildings that we've installed last year, which helped us out through IDA and all that stuff until insurance can reimburse us.
Jason, how much of that 75 did we use last year?
We were all, at one point we were down to, I think we're down to, Lizette, you might have to answer this. I don't know.
We were down to about 20,000 and then insurance reimbursed. I mean, this was kudos to Jay. This was a great idea, and to the governing body for implementing this. This was a lifesaver for not just emergency repairs due to IDA, but with the professional services needed for the fire department, for company 2 architecturally, and for our initial investigation, initial phase of Borough Hall and having to have an environmental assessment. This line has covered that without any additional cost to the taxpayer. So it's a godsend. It's great.
And one other thing is, it's not adding 75,000 every year. It's maintaining the 75,000 every year. I just want you all to know that. So it's not 75,000 to equal the whole 375,000. It's just, that's every year we want to maintain that $75,000 level.
So, and Chris, you might want to chime in on this. So this is an accounting action. We're not really spending the money unless we need it. So what we're doing is putting up a placeholder for monies we may need to spend. So it may not have any impact on the capital budget unless the need is there. Did I get that correct, Chris?
Yeah, exactly. At the time that this spreadsheet was put together, we were actually expected to be negative $20,000 in sewer repairs, right? Where we were going to need to be replenishing this. Since the time that this was prepared and today, we reimbursed this account $45,000 for insurance reimbursements, just as Lizette had just mentioned. So our balance is right around $25,000 today. You know, the question is, how much more of that do you think that we're going to need by the time that we're ready to adopt this ordinance? Because for 2022, we might want to just keep the full 75,000 in there. not because we have a specific need for it, but just to replenish that balance back up to an amount that will give us enough leeway in case we do have an emergency need for it. And then in 2023, we may not need, if we don't use it in 2022, the request goes away for 2023 because we'll have the balance available.
So basically it's a cushion or a margin.
Yeah, I mean, it's a placeholder, and in the event we need it, we use it. If we don't, we don't. And I don't go out and borrow the money for anything that we're not using. So it's just an open authorization. The direct cost of having any emergency funds available is simply the 5% down payment. And then if we do use it, I'll obviously go out and borrow the funds for it. And if not, it'll sit there until it's needed.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that the public, the council, and the committee all knew that this is not real money, this is cushion money, and that it gets reimbursed as quickly as it can.
And just so you also know, Mayor, we are redoing fire company too. There is a $25,000 deductible. So this money will be helping to absorb that $25,000 deductible of the materials and the repairs. Am I
And
correct?
in that case, it would be real money because it would not be real.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
All right.
Any question from council? Committee? Let's carry on.
Okay, next thing is DPW salt shed. I was slow rolling this for years, trying to get the money saved up. I was going to start slow rolling it, but now we have such rot on the bottom of the DPW shed, salt shed, that it's ready to come down. I can support that shed for probably about another year. I'm trying to support that shed for about another year and a half to try to extend its life a little longer. The 1.75 million is also to add mechanics bays. This would be phase one of two phases down here. The second phase could be years down the road. But this is phase one. What's happening down here is we have hundreds of thousands of dollars of equipment sitting outside at this point. Okay. What I would like to do is build the brand new salt shed and then a mechanics work bays right off the salt shed. So they're back over in the corner, which would open up room in the main DPW garage where I could pull more equipment in instead of it sitting outside rotting away. We have and I'll give you, for instance, when I say rotting away, we clean all the trucks, of course, after every storm and everything. One of our garbage trucks that sit outside, the whole floor is rotted out. I have to replace the whole floor in the truck. That could be parked inside or come inside, which of course, once it's housed indoors, the life expectancy is easily 4 to 5 more years on a piece of equipment. It's not taking the beating of rain, snow, sun, everything else. This will also help us down the line, whenever we do have to replace the Department of Public Works building. This will help the mechanics consistently stay running during that process. So it's a win-win situation for that. Now, this was, of course, done before the Borough Hall was talked about. So again, this section is a work in progress. So, but as of right now, the salt shed can last an extra year, but I wouldn't go past that. And again, I think it would be, it's a wise move just to get the equipment in. I mean, we put a lot of money into the stuff. I just hate to see it sitting outside because there's no room when we can easily make room because we're improving that location. And it wouldn't be much more money to do that.
I have a question, Jason.
Okay.
Go ahead, Indira, go ahead.
Just a quick question. You mentioned 2 phases. Is this, that 1.4, does that encompass both phases or just one phase?
That would be phase one. That would be the salt shed, mechanical bays connected to the salt shed. That would be its own building. Phase two down the road would be the department, the building that you see us in now.
Itself, okay.
Yes. Just so everybody also knows, I know I put in for electrical for the bigger building, I believe last year or the year before. I have had an electrician in here to prolong that electric, so I just want that known too, for a little bit. He did take care of some of the wiring, so that was a problem, but again, that's down the road is still going to be a problem. But the safety end of it, he maintained. So this would be a good start as phase one. So, you know, we can get vehicles out of the weather inside, and to move the mechanics to one central location that's updated, and the salt bin can be replaced with that. So that's where we're at with all that.
So Jason, I got a few questions for you.
Okay.
First of all, can you break down the cost of what you think the salt shed would be, and then the mechanics bays, and how many mechanics bays you're talking about? Let's start there.
Okay, so the salt shed's around 700,000 by itself. The reason why is because of the size of the structure, the height of the structure, the doors, and we would have to redo the concrete foundation to an 8-foot wall. Of course, we got to follow DEP specs on this, being by the river. So that raises the price a little bit. The metal side of that, the mechanic side of that would be a prefabbed building that would come in, sort of like this, however we design it, but that would only have to have a certain wall size on it, so it lowers the cost a little bit, and then of course you build off of that. The mechanic side would have 3 full 63-foot bays, so it would fit garbage trucks all the way nose to tail with a plow on it, and have room to work around it. Because at the end of the day, it's useless if you can't get every piece of equipment in. Again, this would not be an architect design that's going to come in and like the Borough Hall redesign everything. This is going to be a prefab, so it's a lot cheaper. So it'd be like General Steel. You would be paying a lot for well, not a lot, sorry. You would be putting money into the electric and the plumbing. That's where all your money, and then of course, site work. Does that answer some of your questions, Dario?
It does. So another question I have is, would you get approved by the DEP to do this work since you're so close to the river?
So we're doing the KBG delineal line right now, the line for that. So they will be looking at this area too, since this is adjacent to that. Right now we have as is, so we have a pre-existing condition here. We already have the salt bin in that location. So what we're doing is we're telling the DEP, listen, we have the salt bin here, we're grandfathered in, it's falling down. We can make little repairs that just keep prolonging it, or we could do one big repair to follow today's standards in the 8-foot walls and building it up. So I don't think that will be a problem, because the mechanics bays would be more to the east side, west side. So that would be more going towards the tracks than going towards the river. So again, that would have to be looked at with engineering and everything. And of course, all the proper permits would still have to go in. But with talking with Rob, he believes it could be done.
My last question for you is, understanding that these are real needs for you, but is there any alternative to help safeguard the life of your equipment? You mentioned rain, snow, and sun being contributors to the degeneration of the equipment. What if instead of actual buildings, we were able to build some sort of sunshade, rain shade, that it's not quite as costly? Is that something that could be considered instead? And then you can park the vehicles underneath. They're not open to the elements in the same way as they currently are. They're somewhat exposed, but not to the same extent. But I would imagine it would save several $100,000. Well,
there's two things. You definitely have to do your salt shed, because eventually that's going away. Second thing is, when I used to work for another town, they used to get those overhang tent things. First windstorm, those tents were gone. They were blown, they were just destroyed, gone. Anything, again, we got to fasten it to the ground somehow. Long story short, it's very, I don't believe you could. I mean, with the size of the vehicles, you would be, for all the, just the canvas ones, you would be, you're talking big money just for them.
I'm not necessarily talking about tents or canvas. I'm talking about, like 4 sticks and a roof. I mean, four columns and a roof, I guess.
Yeah, you gotta, we have to meet standards down here of OSHA and stuff. So, I mean, we're still, I mean, we could put 4.
I'm not saying you shouldn't meet standards. I'm asking you if that has been vetted, considered, looked at as an option. And if you're telling me that it has and it's not possible,
I mean,
that's fine. I don't know anything about that, but I'm thinking of an alternative to a $775,000 bay that this town right now can't really afford unless it's an absolute necessity that we have to do. Then of course we'll do it. But we're looking at like a lot of costs. And as you know, obviously within your building too, there's going to be some substantial costs coming down the pike in the not too distant future. So I'm just trying to, think of alternative ways that we can get you what you need, extend the life of our equipment, but perhaps not drop $750,000 on you buildings this year.
Well, and that's why I brought up, if this has to be moved, that's why I brought up the salt shed of being able to be, let's just say, rigged for another year, bringing in a guy just for a couple $1,000s to try to elongate the life of that for the proper planning and the outlook based on the new problems that have reared its head throughout the borough. Then, I mean, we can do that. I just don't want to extend it too far where these Band-Aids now are, it's not unsafe. But I did have a guy out here that stated.
So Jason, let me intercede. So what you're saying is that we can move the $1,475,000 to the 2023 budget, but at that point it would be a necessity.
And you got to remember, yes, and you got to remember the costs are going up every year.
No, we always understand that.
So I mean, I even think this number might be a little low. I'm just, this was a number taken back in October.
Okay.
So
can we move half of it to next year and start the process this year? We don't even know if the DEP will definitively allow us to do this anyway. So isn't there something to be said about putting certain money on for whatever pre-work we're going to need to do to make sure that this can be done, and then really revisiting this next year?
Well, if you want to split this in half, I have no problem with that. That will help us at least.
Okay,
Yes,
hold on, Jason. I'm gonna stop you there for a second. Lizette, this is really your area. What would we have to put into the budget for engineering and soft costs this year?
Well, actually, this is also partially a placeholder because we don't know what the renovation to Borough Hall will be.
That was actually going to be my second question because I don't see it anywhere on the list.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not, we're still in the assessment phase. Next week, the environmental assessment will be done, and that's really the driver of the cost, the remediation.
Could I offer to the council a recommendation for the sense of practicality? I recommend we reduce this to $1 million, make it salt shed / mechanic space / Borough Hall, and whatever is needed to complete this project, we have in mind. We're not obligated because every year the law says that you cannot bind a future council to a past council, but that we in the previous year we complete whatever we need simply to reduce it by $500,000. Does the council think that that's a reasonable idea?
Agreed.
So Jason, we wouldn't be reducing it by half. We would be reducing it essentially by a third. So we'd reduce it to 1 million instead of 1,475,000. And this would hopefully cover the soft costs for the planning of this as well as Borough Hall. Lizette, does that sound practical to you?
I recommend leaving it as is because
amount.
once you do the demo work, if any unforeseen cost appears, then you're gonna have to go through the process of doing a supplemental bond ordinance, and that takes time. There's an estoppel period. And in prior years, there were years with multiple bond ordinance, and you are absorbing additional soft costs of legal work, of bond counsel. I mean,
All right, then,
unlike
how about this?
an operating budget, that's a 2-year budget where you have a
Yeah.
reserve year and surplus, what's left in capital, if there's a balance, it will offset a future year project. I
How
don't,
about
re-
how about we do this? How about we change the item from DPW salt shed / mechanic bays to DPW salt shed / mechanic bay / borough hall?
How about-
And what does the council think of that idea? And Jason, what do you think of that idea?
Can I just say something? Why don't we
Sure.
just remove the DPW salt shed? Don't leave it as that. Obviously, the priority this year is Borough Hall, right?
Yeah.
So obviously, if I can get away with the running budget and to be able to, I want to do this right.
Yeah.
And do it all in one shot. So if we have to move that 1475 down, I'm fine to see where we are in 2023-24. Why don't we just label it Borough Hall?
But it doesn't affect anything if we triple name it. It
Well,
just
and this
allows
is
for bonding, doesn't it?
But this is what I'm just saying. Why don't we just leave it as Borough Hall? And why don't we look at Borough Hall? And I know we're only looking at portion A, B, and C, but why don't we just up that amount to 2 million, get all of Borough Hall done?
I don't know. I mean, I'm gonna let the council speak. for
Look
itself,
at
but
this
I don't
next
think,
year.
yeah, I don't think we're
Or the
gonna.
year after and start doing this.
I'm gonna let the council weigh in on that. I generally don't think that that's a good idea. I mean, we're already up to 6.1 million. I can't.
I agree with the mayor, and I think that we should listen to Lizette's advice, leave it at 1.475.
Agree.
I agree.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, Jason, I hear the practicality of your recommendation, but we're already up at 6.1 mil, and I don't know about anybody else, but I'm a little bit uncomfortable with that, but that's the way it is this year, regrettably. I love looking at the number of 2023, starting off at 1.7. I think we triple name it. We do what we need to do with it. It allows for flexibility. Lizette, Chris, would you agree by triple naming it leaves us with some flexibility?
Yeah, the way that it'll appear in the bond ordinance is likely, improvements to borough buildings and facilities, including but not limited to Borough Hall, the Mechanics Bay, the DPW salt shed. So you'll have some flexibility in there. All of those improvements have the same useful life, so they're all in the same section of the bond ordinance.
I guess the only thing I would mention is if rates are going to go up a lot, which we don't know if that's going to happen or not. I don't know.
We don't, but we're really up to 6.1 mil, and I don't. Let me ask this. I lost the question. Oh, not this. Lizette, Chris, Jason, I would like for you guys to move forward with the soft costs for the shed and the mechanics bay. If possible, I'd like for that to be considered. That's why I want to leave it with all three. Of course, we won't know that until we get to June or July or August, when we have a recommendation from the architect and the engineer. But I'd like for the council to have an understanding that if the report from the architect and the engineer and the construction that and the demolition allows for it, that we would use those costs in the fall to plan for the shed. Is the council comfortable with that? And Lizette, Chris, and Jason, are you comfortable with that?
I'm comfortable with it.
Yeah,
Lizette?
we need to have a plan in place to mitigate any surprises down the road.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that, whatever. If that's what the council wants, I'm good with that. That'll work.
And what about the council and the committee? Is there any objection to that as a plan for going forward, tentative as it is?
No objection.
Do we need to put anything for 2023?
I think we need to personally. I think that's a great point, Indira. Jason, Lizette, Chris, what would you recommend for 2023?
Can I, in this section especially, I'm reworking the 5-year plan because of Borough Hall and what happened or where it's at. So let me come up with a new 5-year plan. I'll give it to everybody for next year. Just keep it like this for this year, just because 23, 24, and 25 might change drastically. Because it all depends on how the engineer comes back with Borough Hall and how far we're going to go with Borough Hall this year. I might have to start breaking that down into phases to move, to go further.
Yeah, the best thing is what Chris is doing, putting to be determined as a placeholder. We can't put a dollar amount. It could be too high, it could be too low, but by putting to be determined, you know, that will be earmarked for eventual expenditures.
And I will come up with a new plan based on Iovino's, our architect, Anthony Iovino's assessment.
So when will we know those numbers?
When Anthony is done with his assessment, I guess, and to see where he needs to go at this time. And I guess the assessment of Borough Hall's A building, A possibly B building, see what the extent of that would be, and then of course go off from there.
All right, let's move forward.
Next thing is the digital signboard out front of Borough Hall. I got in a couple quotes. This is the signboard right now is a 16 millimeter board. It's horrible to see. The board is old, fading. The top part is cracked, and it's one color. Couple people, including myself, agree. You drive by it, you can't even read it. You're going so fast. This number is a new digital board that will be a 12 millimeter board. That's a V-style board. So instead of it being straight vertical with Kinnicamack Road and Borough Hall, it'll be a V-style more shifted out to the road. So it'll be a double sign with the logos on the top, and it will be able to be viewed a lot better as you're driving by. It also has full color. The board actually, if you ever drove through Maywood, looks like Maywood's board by their park. Going down, I don't know if that's still Forest or what road that is, but going down to Maywood, their board with all the, it looks like almost like a TV.
I'm not in favor of doing this, given all the other expenses that we have.
Neither am I.
Neither am I.
Yeah, neither am I.
Okay, let's move it to 2023 for reconsideration. All right, we've just finished this section. Is there further debate or discussion or questions? Hearing none, could I have a motion in a second as amended?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstention? Okay, where do we go from here? It's been 3 hours and 40 minutes, so maybe nothing too troublesome, but you know, we do have to finish it this meeting and the next meeting. So where are we?
Well, the remaining item is the sewer emergency repair line to maintain that balance similar to the emergency repair line. It was high in 2021 at 300,000 because that line had been not just diminished and not replaced, but there was the need for an emergency repair to Manchester. And having that line again has been extremely helpful. And not only did it address Manchester, as you'll see on your agenda packet for Monday, there was an emergency repair to prevent a collapse during the holidays. So that line is for a replenishment, as sewers are aging infrastructure that could go at any time.
That in our books, that number is 125.
Yes, but that also has engineering, and of course, you'll definitely need police for traffic control.
Oh, okay, it's not listed here, so, okay.
So we're gonna up that line, Lizette?
No,
But the
it's,
one-
it's already upped in the book.
Yeah,
Oh.
it's
There.
the 125 is for the construction and the soft costs are built in. That's why it appears as 165. Unless you have a different recommendation, Jay.
I just pulled up the balances in Edmonds. We have just about $100,000 left over from the 300 from last year. So the question is whether we can reduce this by the 100,000 or if we're going to need the additional funds for a project.
Well, we are putting Voorhees in the capital budget, so I don't know, we don't need it for that. And could we? Jason, Lizette, could we reduce it 100,000? That'd be great if we could.
The emergency repair that's on Monday's agenda alone was 90,000.
So that gets rid of your entire
Yeah.
existing balance.
One emergency wipes out the line.
Easy come,
Yeah.
easy go, I guess.
Yeah, that's, the problem is if we get one repair, that's fine. But if we get two repairs during the course of a year, it's not. This last repair was deep. A lot of our deeper, older lines that are clay are starting to go. Main trunk lines. Main trunk lines means where all the lines go into and run out of the borough. It's a lot more money when you tag one of them. There's a lot more to do. So I would definitely leave it at the 165 and go from there. I mean, if we need emergency funding from there, then we'd have to talk about it more.
Is the council good with this? I am.
Yes,
Could I have a motion in a second?
so moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstentions? Hearing none. What next?
It appears that we're done with capital with the exception of parks and fields of recreation, going back to OEM for the vehicle, and the cameras, as well as for me to provide information on the workstations. Let's see.
Okay, that sounds reasonable. I assume that what you're suggesting is that we're essentially done for today?
Well, unless you want to go through any salary and wage requests, not going department by department, but we do have two departments that made a special request for salary and wages. And then what we could do is just to follow up on Wednesday and go through any operating budgets.
So what I'm going to recommend to the council is, without objection, we're going to go to noon. We're going to have a hard stop at noon. We'll look at some of these issues. If we don't finish this work, it carries over to the next meeting. Is there objection? Hearing none, go ahead, Lizette.
Okay, so
We're in the binder.
if you go to Department of Public Works, there was a request towards, after the admin sheets, from our director regarding a couple of salary changes for an operator and the assistant office clerk. That's right before, that's the page right before the capital spreadsheets under Department of Public Works.
Are these for, yeah, I don't see it. Do you guys see it?
Yes. It's in the 22 budget request justification right before the first capital budget.
Looked like a memo.
Yes.
Yeah, I must not have it. Hold on. And you're saying it's in the Department of Public Works section?
Yes, right after the
Near the
admin
end.
ends.
It's like 6 pages from the end, 5, 6 pages from the end.
Yeah.
Okay, didn't get in my book, but fine, no worries. Let me ask this before we begin. Are these non-contractual individuals? Since I don't have the memo?
One's contractual for the promotion, one's non-contractual.
Aren't we entering into a negotiation with the contractual side?
Yes, Mayor, this was the position that was held off last year. This was awarded last year, but this was the position that was sort of scooted aside to try to make the differences of the change of starting salary.
Wouldn't this be a closed session discussion, or am I wrong?
It's a budgetary discussion, so budgetary has to be open session. It doesn't, if it fell into collective bargaining, then that would be closed. But it's just a matter of funding, so that's public.
So Lizette, walk us through it. What do you think?
Jay, why don't you start with the office clerk since that's non-contractual?
Okay, thank you. Pretty much over the last year and a half, we've encountered a lot more work in this office. Right now, we have one full-time office staff member and a part-timer that's working here. Throughout this last year, from all aspects of reporting, whether it's DEP reporting, whether it's safety reporting from the joint insurance fund, or anything to do with any outsourcing or any company utility outside of us. The second thing is we have started really reconciling our bills from PSE&G, Suez, and every other company that we use. Suez and PSE&G bills are really starting to become time consuming. We've never really reconciled our bills until now to make sure that the funding that or the payments that we're paying them were correct. So now we have both ladies working on that all the time. So pretty much Miriam would be Lisa. She would be the fill-in, with the exception of, long story short, would be the same thing that Lisa is, with the exception of the recycling coordinator, to reconcile the bills that have been coming a lot more and have a lot more to do with them, like a lot more to do with the breakdowns and time. We found thousands of dollars of mess ups, as Lizette would say, since we started reconciling the bills. And of course, with all the extra, I mean, I have a whole list here from soliciting quotes. The foremen help use her to solicit the quotes with the billing. Of course, reconciling the bills, the memos and letters, the budget preparation she assisted me on when Lisa's on the phone with PSE&G trying to figure out a bill for 3 hours because they're not the best. OEM storm report she assists with, cleaning communities reports. She's pretty much the secondary person in this office. So if something happens to Lisa, or Lisa goes out for 2 or 3 weeks, she would be the next person up for this position. This is the biggest build department. We have the biggest budget. And pretty much there's a lot of paperwork that goes along with that.
I don't have the document in front of me, so what are we talking about? Can you give me some information?
So pretty much right now we pay her as a part-time salary of $39,000 or $38,000. What we're looking to start her at is $39,000.
So you're saying a differential of $1,000?
Yes.
Plus benefits.
Yes, I was just going to get to that. Plus putting her on for full time.
And Lizette, what would that impact be?
that, Chris would have the benefits amount.
Chris, what would that be?
The range, and I don't actually know what her status is as far as the benefit would be, but the range would be anywhere from 9,000 for a single plan to almost 30,000 for a family plan. And then pension, I figure is about 15%. It's an actuarial calculation that the state does each year. So I can't give you the exact number, but it's roughly 15%.
15% of the salary?
Yeah, of the pensionable salary, yes.
So that's 6,000 about.
Correct.
So we're talking about a bump of $37,000 at the outside, and on the inside, a bump of about 16,000, 16 to 30. Okay.
Correct.
Mayor,
Do
to
they
offset,
want to debate this now, or do they want to think about it and bring it and make it a part of the next meeting?
How many hours does this part-time person work currently?
she's actually 29 hours. She's at the limit and more. She does a little extra and doesn't get paid for it because of the thing. She's just a good employee that way. So
Full-time would be 40 hours, yes?
yes,
So we're
That's
talking about doubling the cost for an extra 11 hours. Would it be not more cost-effective to hire a second part-time individual?
and to train another they work very well. If you just add the extra 11, I understand where you're going with the benefit end because benefits are expensive, but in this office right now, we have no room, and then trying to train another person when you really don't have to, and have another body down here that you're trying to work within, to me,
But Jason, you're doubling the cost for only 11 hours extra. So you're not getting a full benefit here. Even taking into consideration the training, if you have an extra person and two people go out, you still have an extra person. You know, so there's other things to consider. And
So
given that let me finish and then you can say whatever you want. Given that we're looking at something that would double the cost here, but only give you 11 extra hours, it seems to me you'd want 30 extra hours for double the cost, not 11 extra hours.
well,
So
30 extra hours would be 39,000.
I understand, but we're talking about possibly 37,000 that we're
Yeah,
increasing.
it's 2,000 less.
Right, but then you get an extra 18 hours out of that person for 2,000 less. Or for 2,000 more. Right?
If I may add, it's also part of succession planning, because in the event the current administrative assistant, recycling coordinator were to retire, then you're left with this vacancy. And in doing so, both employees are being cross-trained, and this department has the biggest budget and is getting more and more requirements from the state on reporting. So you want to make sure everything is centralized. You can't piecemeal stormwater reporting and say, okay, you're the stormwater person and you're the recycling person and you're the utility person. That putting, too many chefs in the kitchen will lead room to error. And when it comes to the state, they need money and they're getting it through fines. So it's a prudent move to make, to keep it to just 2 full-time people than having just too many people with their hands on these documents.
Let me reframe the question. Chris, say we say that she needs full benefits, which would be 30,000, and it would be salary and wages would go up. It's about $30,000 with full wages, or am I wrong there?
That's accurate. Assuming a family plan, you're right in that ballpark.
What's the impact on the budget? What would it be for taxpayers? What would be the impact on the median household?
I don't have the median number. I have the mean number.
Give me the mean.
The mean is at a $391,000 residential value, which is what you have on your tax impact sheets. $30,000 increase would be $7.91 on the average house.
And okay, so $8.
Chris, can you give us the number after everything we've done today? Because I know we've lowered it from what we started at, and then a couple of things went up a little bit. So I have it roughly the same, that we're roughly even at the end of the day. Is that right?
That's correct, right? So the budget document that you have in front of you took into consideration $315,000 for a capital improvement fund, which was actually more than what you needed based on the capital improvement fund that was in front of you. I did this for two reasons. One, obviously there are going to be pluses and minuses as we go through the document. So I put a number that was a little higher than what I anticipated that it would be. But also our reserve in capital improvement fund is zero right now. So last year, you recall when we did the $280,000 Scott Pack ordinance, we had to do an emergency authorization for additional capital improvement fund, which you are now paying in the 2022 budget. Now that's not really an issue, but it does save us the requirement of having to do that. That said, we're down to about 290 required for the capital improvement fund, which would reduce the amount that I have in the budget by about 25,000 if we just put the exact amount that we needed. We just added 24,000, not just 4 hours ago, we added 24,000 for the library. So yeah, we're right around even.
So you're saying 70?
Correct.
Okay.
And that includes this request or no?
This request is already built into the budget that you have in front of you.
Okay.
So another question, BCUA, do we have the number?
We do not. I put a 2% increase in there for that one. I put a 2% increase in there for Paramus as well. We actually haven't received the Paramus sewer bill for 2021 yet. I spoke with the CFO a month ago, just via email. She said they have a new engineer, so we won't get that number right away either.
So do you think that the margin you've put in is a reasonable margin?
For the BCUA, I do. And the reason why I only added 2%, because it doesn't historically go up only 2%, was because we had increased it last year by, I forget what the percentage was, but we had increased it anticipating it to come in higher, and it didn't. So we had flexibility in the 2021 budget. So I'm actually building 2% on top of the 2021 amount, sorry, that already had enough to accommodate us. So I do think that there's enough flexibility in this year's budget. If we receive the invoice before we introduce and or adopt, we can make a modification at that time.
So I'd like to make a recommendation to council. I think it's already in the budget, $70. Last year was $96.90. We already have BCU and Paramus as a margin in the budget. So we would be coming in essentially $30 or so less than last year's budget, which is towards the taxpayer, which is a pretty good deal. But I would recommend we not vote on it because we have the second part, which we haven't. I told you this would be a hard stop at noon. It is noon. It gives us a little time to think about it. And Lizette, if you could actually, we were going to talk about cameras and workstations first. Could we move this to the front? Let's talk about this request and the other request up front, and then we can move back to cameras and workstations and anything else on the agenda. So that's what I'm recommending to the council. Of course, if you want to stay longer, continue to discuss this, or you want to take a vote on it right now, I'm inclined to say that I think it's a good idea. Because of succession, because of, we'd have more stability, but it's up to the council. What do you think, Dara?
I would make the motion to approve now. I think from what I heard from Lizette and Jason, I think I have enough to go on. I think it's necessary for exactly the reasons that Lizette stated and Jason stated. So I just wanted to make sure that we considered everything as we do, and our fine professionals and borough employees have done so. So I'm good with making that motion.
Is there objection? No, I'm sorry. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. It's open for debate. Is there debate?
I just ask a question. I'm not opposed to it. Just ask a question. Is there any way to offset any of the salary for these two folks at DPW with grants, because these are state mandated things they have to do regarding recycling, stormwater? You don't have to answer me now, but maybe when we come back next week, you could just answer that question.
Why don't we make that item number 3 so that we can stick to our noon, and we're only making a motion for the one we heard, not the other one. So everybody understand that. I want to make sure you know you're voting on. The second topic will be also something we'll begin with on Wednesday?
Wednesday.
Yes.
Wednesday. So it's been moved and seconded. Ellen has a good point. Let's hear about that when we come back. Ellen, do you wish to postpone the vote before your question is answered?
No.
So seeing no objection, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, any abstention? All right, Lizette, see you Wednesday night, correct?
Monday night, 'cause we have a
Monday.
council meeting.
Yeah, no, but for our next budget.
Yes.
Okay, and our next council meeting at 6 PM. It is a virtual, it's our last virtual, but we will be doing the swearing in person. So any member of council who wishes to be, who can attend, that would be in front of, we're doing it in front of Borough Hall, Chief, unless there's rain, and then we'll do it down in the courtroom, correct?
Yeah, we, front of Borough Hall, if not, maybe we might, I might talk to the fire chief and see if we can use the base, since we're talking now 3 families.
Okay, and
But,
that would be at 6 o'clock, right?
That's what you want, that's what it'll be.
That's what we posted for, right?
That's what was on the sunshine notice that Anne prepared.
Good. All right, I hope there's no other comments, but if there are any other comments, hearing none, could I have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Do we need a, we don't need for this. All in favor, please say aye.
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 All right, any opposed, any abstained? Outstanding work, everyone. Thank you, Chris, Lizette, Chief, Jason, Superintendent. Really good work, everybody. Thank you very, very much. And to the
Nice
committee.
job,
for being
everybody.
here.
Have a good day.
Have
All
a
right.
good weekend.
You too.
Have a
Have a
good
weekend.
weekend.
All right, thank you, Ken. Take care.
Take care.
Bye.